again.
RPN is not responsible for the views, actions, statements, or opinions of its guests, advertisers, or even its viewers. The information contained in this program is not to be confused with medical or legal advice. An appearance on this platform is not necessarily an endorsement, but as always, we encourage you to do your own research. Enjoy the show. So here is what your financial advisor is probably not going to tell you. By the time the news says to buy gold, it's already too late. You're waiting. I get it. Everybody's waiting to see if the ceasefire holds, waiting to see if the strait reopens, waiting to see just kind of what happens next. But the thing about it is, gold is not waiting for you because gold moves on fear, on instability, on the unknown. And it moves a lot faster than you can react. So while you're waiting for certainty, the rest of the world is planning for what comes next. So you can wait or you can prepare, but you can't do both. And remember, the best time to put on a seatbelt is before the accident happens, not after. So if you're finally ready to act, then it's time to reach out to Noble Gold Investments. They help Americans just like you protect their savings with physical gold and silver. It can get shipped right to your door, or they can hold it in a tax-advantaged IRA. No taxes, no penalties, no rollover fees on 401ks or an existing IRA. So visit noblegoldinvestments.com/redpill78 and get your free investor kit today. 5 minutes today could protect decades of savings. Once again, noblegoldinvestments.com/redpill78. Don't be the one still waiting. And when you support my sponsors, you support this channel. All right. Oh, that's the wrong button. All right. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome back. Thank you so much for joining us. I am so pleased to be able to invite you here, as I do every day, Monday through Friday at 5 p.m. Eastern, for another episode of Red Pill News Live. Thank you. Again, if you guys haven't yet, please do me a favor. Consider hitting that like button. Consider helping us out by sharing the show. That is really the only way we can get new eyes on the program and bring people here to the channel. Let me do a refresh on X. Let me do a refresh on Getter. And then let me make sure that everything is good over here on Rumble. Yes, we should be fine. All right, you guys, we are going to start today with the latest ad from Spencer Pratt and his mayoral race in California. Every single day, every single ad that I see, I am fully 100% believing that this guy has the potential to become the next mayor of Los Angeles. I have a really good feeling about it. So let's take a look. And, hold on just a second. I need to fix the screen because that is not the correct article. Where is the hell is it? God, I got too much. There we go. Okay. That's the one. All right, here we go.
Staring at the blank page before you, open up the dirty window, let the sun illuminate the words that you could not find, reaching for something in the distance, so close you can almost taste it, release your inhibitions, feel the rain on your skin, no one else can feel it for you, only you can let it in, today is where your book begins, the rest is still unwritten.
It's not too late. It's not too late to save Los Angeles. Hold on. You know, there was another one that I actually bookmarked right before we went live. It's about a guy waking up from a coma. Oh, yeah, here it is. Here it is. This is good. This is good. Okay, here we go.
Daddy!
You were in a coma. 3 years. MacArthur Park, right? Where are all the needles and homeless people?
The mayor fixed it.
Wait, isn't this downtown? Where are all the tents? The piss and the shit and the criminal drug addicts?
The mayor fixed it.
They rebuilt the Palisades? How?
The mayor fixed it.
Wow. Karen Bass really turned the city around.
Karen Bass isn't the mayor anymore, honey.
Who's the mayor?
Spencer Pratt.
Remember when LA used to be beautiful? Remember when LA used to be a place that people wanted to visit? Things have changed so much, and it's all due to the dramatic and horrific mismanagement of not only Los Angeles, but the entire state of California. Let me say thank you to Miller Biz, who says, hi, everyone. Trust Trump and trust Red Pill 78 News. It's a great time to be alive. Thank you so much. I really do appreciate that. No Thanks Joe says, hey, Zach and Lisa, happy Thursday. Good to see you and looking forward to a great show of information. Thanks again for your continued hard work. God bless and be safe. Good to see you, my friend. Thank you to Sean Joe for 2 cookies. Thank you to Catgirl88 for a cookie. Thank you to Dixie for a pair of shades. Thank you to Judy the Lady Pug for a can. And then thank you to Sean Joe for a cookie as well. I appreciate you guys. All right, now I promised you a potentially terroristic act thwarted in Alabama. So divers at a dam in Mobile, Alabama. Now this is the sole source of drinking water for this area. They were performing routine maintenance at the Converse Reservoir Dam on Big Creek Lake yesterday. And as they were diving underwater, they quite literally found an improvised explosive device. This was a grenade-type IED that was submerged underwater, and it looks like somebody had set this up as a potential booby trap to blow the dam, which would not only take all of the drinking water for this area, but it also might have the possibility of destroying lots of property, putting homes underwater, killing people. If you guys have ever seen a dam collapse and the destruction that results from that collapse, it can be catastrophic. So the Mobile County Sheriff's Department was immediately notified, and they got together with a number of other agencies from the area for a multi-agency response. The Gulf Coast Maritime Regional Response Unit was there, the Render Safe Team, the FBI Bomb Squad, the Mobile Police Department Explosive Ordnance Detail, ALEA Bomb Squad, and Daphne Search and Rescue. Take a listen to this.
Yeah, that explosion was controlled and intentional. A grenade-type explosive device was found underwater at Big Creek Lake, the primary drinking water supply for the Mobile area. The Mobile Area Water and Sewer System, MA, is saying divers found this improvised explosive device while surveying the lake's dam for routine repairs. A multi-agency bomb squad team, including the FBI, Mobile County Sheriff's Office, and state law enforcement, retrieved and safely destroyed it, as you just saw. Moss says the drinking water supply was not affected. Big Creek Lake is federally designated critical infrastructure, and Homeland Security has been notified. We're trying to find out where the IED came from, if it's been there for some time, or if investigators think it was placed there. We'll let you know what we find.
Now, I'm a bit of an amateur magnet fisher. If you guys have ever gone magnet fishing, we got a lot of canals here in Florida, lots of waterways, number of bridges that you can throw a magnet on a rope overboard, and then you can try to see what you can catch off of the bottom. So it's not unheard of to find things like this in waterways. I've always been shocked to see what people are able to pull up from the depths. Sometimes you find guns that criminals have thrown over a bridge because, you know, they're trying to get rid of a weapon after a murder or a robbery at a gas station. Sometimes you'll find mortars, you'll find landmines, you find all kinds of weird things. Now, the reason I think it's more likely that this is a potential act of sabotage on critical U.S. infrastructure is because of how strategic that would be. If that would have been possible to blow this up, then certainly a number of our enemies definitely would have been happy to see that happen. So the locals have spoken about this. They were able to safely retrieve the IED. They detonated it off-site. There was no damage to the dam or to the water supply. And they said that they are taking this extremely seriously. Our top priority is keeping your drinking water safe. This is an unprecedented threat, and we are fortunate this device was discovered before it could cause any serious damage to the supply of water or harm to individuals. We're grateful for the professionalism and competency of our local law enforcement partners, as well as the quick thinking of our contractors and divers in identifying this device and safely destroying it. Now, the question ultimately is going to be, how did this device get there? Why was it placed there? Who made it? Was it's something that, you know, people were just like joking around doing? Was it thrown into a body of water at some time many years ago and then just ended up here? This dam was built in the 1950s. So theoretically, based upon the age of the device, and I'm sure that they've figured that out before they went and blew it up, it could have been there for a very long time. But roughly 60 million gallons of drinking water every single day flows from that reservoir into the homes of residents there in Mobile and, of course, the surrounding areas. Now, there currently are no suspects. They have no motive, but the FBI is actively investigating it, and soon enough, I'm certain that they probably will be making an additional announcement. With Department of Homeland Security also on the case, I'm sure that they are taking it very, very seriously. But the good news is nobody was hurt. Now, from this case of potential terrorism, we switch instead to a case of real terrorism. Now, I'm sure you guys remember the Muslim attack that took place in Louisiana last year. That was billed initially as sort of a lone wolf attack, but now another man has been charged and arrested as a co-conspirator in that attack. It's not somebody who directly gave assistance to the Muslim lunatic that tried to kill a bunch of people in Louisiana. Of course, some people did lose their lives, but it wasn't nearly as bad as it could have been. But a man from Missouri, whose name is Jordan Derrick. He's a 40-year-old man. And the complaint alleges that Derrick was engaging in the business of manufacturing explosive materials without a license. They've also charged him with the unlawful possession of an unregistered destructive device, and then one count of distributing information relating to the manufacturing of explosives. And that appears to be how this case is connected to that man down in Louisiana. Let me say thank you to One Ohio Gal Now, who says, I always look forward to your show, Zach, and thank you for all your hard work. Thank you so much. One Ohio Gal, it's always a pleasure to have you here. My Undivided Life also says, I agree. I love your show. Thank you for your passion for news. Thank you for that as well. Really do appreciate it. Filter Dog says, I love that commercial. And then Sean Joe dropped another cookie. Thank you for that, both of you. All right. Now, essentially, right around September of 2023, Derrick, this guy Jordan Derrick, began using his social media channels to distribute videos of him producing a variety of different explosive materials. And that included the building of detonators, NAP, ethylene glycol dinitrate, hexamethylene tripteroxide diamine. I don't even know any of these chemicals, but they all sound very dangerous. Essentially, what Jordan Derrick did was create social media content of himself building bombs and then blowing them up. And it would appear that Shamsu Din Jabbar, the individual behind the New Orleans attack in January of last year, created IEDs using the instructions from Derrick's videos. So these devices that were created by Jabbar were placed in various areas around New Orleans. They did not actually go off, but they could have gone off, and they could have killed a lot more people. And the arrest of Derrick took place in Odessa, Missouri. While they were searching his home, they found additional components for bomb making, as well as other fully completed explosive devices. And he told investigators that he manufactured these things because he himself watched online tutorials. And of course, there were others who have now watched Derrick's devices, and there you go. So just a caution there. Don't make bombs and then post the videos of exactly how you make those bombs online, because you may find yourself in Derrick's position. He could be sentenced up to 10 years in federal prison for manufacturing of explosive devices without a license. He could also be sentenced to up to 20 years in prison if he's actually convicted of distributing the information related to the manufacture of those devices. I think he's probably going to end up going to prison, because it's, I mean, you know, I feel bad for the guy, but that's exactly what he did. The other thing about this is, because these are federal crimes, there's no parole. So if they give him 10 years and 20 years and he's able to serve it concurrently, he will stay in prison for 20 years. If they give it consecutively, he will end up staying in prison for 30 years. And I don't think that they're going to be taking this too lightly. Let me see. Chafed Bum also says, thank God they could have been killed by the leprechaun. Could be a crackhead. Got a hold of the wrong stuff or something. That is one of my favorite old-time YouTube videos. Much, much love it. Okay, so yeah, I mean, I see a lot of people saying exactly how I feel. This was a dumb move on his behalf. I mean, I watch a lot of channels, people who do blow things up, people who work with chemicals, people who make things that could be dangerous, and I've never seen a channel where somebody step-by-step went through the process explaining exactly how to build something that could be so destructive. I mean, that's just common sense there. If you put that information out there, somebody is likely to use it. So anyways, that's what we call a smoking gun. So Derrick is probably not going to find himself beating these charges. Now, we also have a reminder from the America First legal group in relation to David Morins, and I thought that this might be good to bring up in context with our next conversation. Now, you may remember this email from Dr. David Morins sent to Dr. Peter Daszak and a number of other people working within the research community that the NIAID was funding. In this email, he talks about the dangers of FOIA. He says, FOIAs are dreadful and paranoia-inducing. Well, that's a shame that you felt that way, Dr. Morins, because you were a public servant. You worked within the federal government, where FOIA is the law of the land. He said in the old days, we had to do them ourselves by hand. I mean, finding and printing out thousands of emails coming in and going out. Now they sometimes FOIA text messages, too. Many FOIAs turn up thousands of pages of docs, and of course, most are meaningless. This is the important part. We are all smart enough to know to never have smoking guns. And if we did, we wouldn't put them in emails, and if we found them, we'd delete them. He finishes by saying, in my 22 years at NIAID, I have never seen a FOIA that turned up useful information. And I think it's quite obvious the reason he's never seen a FOIA that turned up useful information is because it was common practice at the NIAID under Dr. Anthony Fauci to delete any smoking guns, to make sure those smoking guns did not exist if or when a FOIA request would come in. So Dr. David Morans is also most definitely going to be prosecuted and will receive the highest penalty that you can get for this. Of course, that is, unless Dr. David Morans wants to turn state's evidence against a Dr. Anthony Fauci, if he wants to maybe give the federal government some sort of information that could potentially get him out of spending the next 2 decades in prison. Because he was the advisor to Dr. Anthony Fauci and, of course, the FOIA woman who handled all of these things. I mean, somebody taught her how to avoid FOIA requests and how to make sure that there would be no smoking guns. Certainly, we heard from Dr. Anthony Fauci in another email talking about how to avoid FOIA. So I cannot wait to see where this all pans out. It's especially notable now that we have this conversation about the CIA and their attempts to cover up information related to MKUltra or the JFK assassination or COVID-19 or the pandemic. So many different things. Now, yesterday, during the course of that whistleblower testimony, the gentleman who was testifying had mentioned that while he was working with the DIG group at the Office of the Director of National Intelligence, at the time the DIG group was disbanded, the CIA came back in and they seized some 40 boxes or so, which contained information about the JFK assassination and MKUltra. Now, of course, both of those subjects have been the subject of a executive order to declassify all of those things. And by seizing them and taking them from the Director of National Intelligence, they have effectively made it impossible for that information to be declassified and then passed out to the American public. What I take issue here with is the characterization of that action by the CIA, because as I was saying in the introduction, a lot of online influencers took that and then stated that the CIA had raided Tulsi Gabbard's office. That is actually an impossibility. The CIA does not have the ability to do raids. I mean, sure, they could come in and take documents, but there's no judge involved. There's no warrant. There's no law enforcement action there. The CIA is an intelligence agency. What is striking is that the Office of the Director of National Intelligence has dominion over the CIA. So it is certainly unusual for the CIA to come in and take those documents from the Office of the Director of National Intelligence, but a raid is the incorrect turn of phrase to use. Now, this was also used last night in the course of Jesse Waters' program on Fox. But this whistleblower, James Erdman, is where this statement initially came from. We covered it yesterday on the show. And he never said it was a raid. He just said the CIA took back 40 boxes of JFK and MKUltra files that were currently being processed for declassification by the DNI. Now, that is obviously a big problem. Now, Anna Paulina Luna yesterday had said that she demanded the return of those documents and that if the CIA didn't do so within 24 hours, she was going to subpoena the CIA so that she could force the return of that information. Now, let's go ahead and hear from Anna Paulina Luna yesterday afternoon.
Okay, I probably shouldn't say.
You also have some news coming out of the CIA that you'd like to share.
Yeah, so we were actually just notified that the CIA went in and took documents out of ODNI, multiple boxes pertaining to the JFK files as well as MKUltra. The reason why this is troubling is A, there was an executive order that the president had directed the full declassification of JFK, but then also to the MKUltra files, the CIA famously has said that, you know, all documents were released and other documents had been destroyed. So these are allegedly those documents that apparently never existed, and so very troubling. I did just talk to Chairman Comer, and we are sending in the next hour or so a preservation of documents request to the CIA. I have calls into the White House to the director of the CIA himself, and so obviously as this develops, we'll keep everyone up to date, but strange times we're living in.
Okay, so again, I see people mincing words. It is definitely not a raid, okay? A raid is what the FBI would do. This was the CIA unlawfully coming and taking those documents. A raid would be a lawful activity, and it would also have some law enforcement action behind it. Now, here is the letter that Anna Paulina Luna sent to the CIA, and, of course, I believe she sent it to the Office of Director of National Intelligence. She has it signed to Director John Ratcliffe by James Comer, who, of course, is leading that committee. And in that letter, she says the Committee on Oversight and Government Reform is requesting you preserve all existing and future records and materials related to JFK's assassination, MKUltra. The committee understands, based on testimony today, that the CIA took back 40 boxes before they could be declassified. And we are the principal oversight committee of the U.S. House of Representatives. We have broad authority. There is a executive order in place. You had no right to take those boxes back. Now, this is also further backed up. My take on this is further backed up by the spokesperson for the Director of National Intelligence, who came out and said that there was no CIA raid. Okay, this is not what happened. The use of that term, and the reason I take issue with it, is because it's a sensationalization of it. I think it is more than enough to say that the CIA unlawfully took these documents. You think raid, and you think that the CIA comes in wearing flak jackets and wielding their MP5s and demanding that the DNI hand over those boxes, when all they did was walk into an office, pick them up, and then take them with them. So it is an important distinction. However, it is a fine line. But yes, the the DIA spokeswoman for Tulsi Gabbard, Olivia Coleman, said that this is false. The CIA did not raid the DNI's office. Of course, she's not denying that the documents were taken. They were definitely taken, but there was no lawful authority behind it. So that is all I wanted to say about that. Now, I believe that I meant to actually place this article somewhere else in the course of this show. Hold on just a second. I need to figure out where it's supposed to go. Okay, I've got it in here twice. That's why. All right. Oh, crap. History, reopen last close tab. Okay, there. That's what I wanted to show. All right, now, what I can tell you, it looks like the CIA is currently waging a secret assassination campaign against Mexican cartels. This is right in line with what we would expect the CIA to do, on top of unlawfully securing documentation that was being declassified and was supposed to have already been delivered to the United States public. But the CIA has significantly expanded their covert operations against Mexican drug cartels, which includes the alleged involvement of targeted assassinations. I personally am totally cool with this. This is the kind of thing that the CIA ought to be doing. Now, this is also particularly interesting because there was a story recently where a couple of CIA officers were killed in some type of a raid that was actually done in conjunction with Mexican authorities on some of these cartel leaders. There were CIA agents that were actually dressed as Mexican police. It was like they were embedded with the Mexican police, and that vehicle appears to have gone down a ravine. There was a fiery accident. Now, this March 28th killing of Francisco Beltran, who was an alleged mid-level Sinaloa cartel operative named El Paine, there was actually an explosive device that was hidden inside his vehicle, and it was detonated on a major highway outside of Mexico City. Mexican officials have confirmed the blast. They say it was caused by a device placed in the car, and a word on the street is that the operation involved CIA personnel. Now, the CIA since 2025 and their elite ground branch unit has taken a more direct role in anti-cartel operations. They've been moving beyond the collection of intelligence and intelligence sharing into operational support and targeted strikes. Again, this is not something that's new. It is, however, interesting that they're admitting it, or that the information is coming out. But this kind of falls in line with what President Trump had suggested previously that if the Mexican government was not going to do their job in terms of cleaning up the Mexican drug cartels, well, then the United States may just start doing our own operations, whether it's special operations of sending in troops, perhaps sending in drones, sending in missiles. And the escalation of the president's operations in Mexico against these cartels are against a number of them. I don't think any of them are going to be left out there in the cold without getting the retribution of the United States government. That is also new. Generally, what the CIA would do would be to operate with their favorite cartel. They would allow one cartel to operate while at the same time getting information on taking down other cartels to sort of pick and choose their favorite, because most likely the cartel they liked working with would also be helping them to smuggle drugs and to commit all manner of criminal activity. They also are saying that the CIA has increased surveillance operations over Mexico, and they've expanded their ground presence, though a number of operatives remain relatively limited in terms of how many they actually have placed on the ground. You can see here, this is an actual video of the bomb which killed this Sinaloa cartel leader. Take a look.
¿Qué pasó? Esa camioneta. Quítate, Adrián, por favor. Ya. ¿Qué pasó?
Kind of crazy that it didn't hurt anybody else, and the car just kept rolling, even went off the road, and then didn't smash into any other vehicles. So this shift the CIA has taken seems to be driven, of course, by concerns that the U.S. government has that cartel groups have penetrated many different levels of the Mexican government and their security apparatus. There was also a Mexican governor who was recently indicted by the United States government for the assisting of the cartel and running drug operations himself. Now, to this point, the Claudia Sheinbaum government is actually protecting this guy. He's a member of her own party. The U.S. government, President Trump, has got Claudia Sheinbaum between a rock and a hard place, because either she assists in taking down the people within her own party and government that are helping the cartel, allowing them to operate, or she has to assist the U.S. government. If she helps the cartels and remains loyal to them, then obviously that puts her at odds with the U.S. If she assists the U.S., then that puts her at odds with the cartel, and she may not live very long. So there is apparently a bit of tension that is simmering between these CIA operations and, of course, the actions that the Mexican government is taking. Now, Mexico's President, Claudia Sheinbaum, has publicly objected to these operations, and she says foreign agents cannot independently operate on Mexican soil. This was in specific reference to the raid on the lab in Chihuahua that I had mentioned, which, even though the CIA was involved and they were dressed as Mexican police, I guess the Mexican government didn't have any knowledge that it was going to be going down. Now, you know, anybody might believe that this is an attack on the sovereignty of a foreign nation, and I could agree with you if it wasn't for the fact that Mexico is essentially controlled by the cartels. They're not even really a sovereign nation at this point. They are just a narco state. So these CIA personnel that are now taking part in these raids and in these targeted killings, I don't care. I really don't care. All right, now, I'll tell you what I do care about, though. Teachers who prey on little children. Teachers preying on children is definitely one of the things that gets me most angry when I take a look at the sick and horrific things that many of these people have done to our country. Before I get into that story, though, I do have a very brief word from our friends over here. Oh, my God. I can't believe that I just did that. Okay, I screwed up. Okay, I'll take care of that one later. Okay, now, so listen to this. A local child, a hero kid, has just saved other children from being victimized by a teacher. He actually set up a dummy account on Snapchat, and he used it to snare a pedophile teacher who had been apparently coming after his girlfriend. Very, very disgusting behavior, and it is fascinating that he was able to so easily ensnare this teacher in this plan. Take a look.
A Huron middle school teacher is on unpaid leave tonight, accused of sending nude pictures to someone he thought was a 14-year-old girl.
And according to court documents, it wasn't a girl, but a teenage boy who made a fake Snapchat account and was catfishing him. Keloland's Dan Santella joins us now with a closer look at this unusual case. Dan?
Zachary Katarabek stands accused of 2 counts of sexual exploitation of a minor, along with 2 counts of solicitation of a minor. He's scheduled to be in court in January when he'll have to respond to the charges. For 4 years, Zach Katarabek was trusted to teach students in the Huron School District. But in May, court documents say a 12-year-old girl told a friend the teacher had added her and messaged her on Snapchat, which made her uncomfortable. That friend responded by making a catfish or fake account posing as a 14-year-old girl named Kate. He added Katarabek on the social media app. The two exchanged numerous messages. Court documents say when Kate said she was 14, Katarabek responded, quote, "Oh, so only 4 more years," and a winking face. The documents also say Katarabek made sexual comments and sent photos of his genitalia. When investigators confronted Katarabek, he admitted speaking with the minors on Snapchat and sending them 4 pictures of his penis after Kate told him she was underage. Tonight, Katarabek is still listed as a middle school teacher on the Huron School District's website. However, the school board took unanimous action yesterday on the status of his employment.
To change Zachary Katarabek's leave from, or administrative leave from paid to unpaid. Is there any discussion or comments? Okay, seeing none, we will vote. Those in favor will say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, motion carries.
Dan Santella, Keloland News. Today I received an emailed statement from Huron School District Superintendent Craig Steinhoff. It says in part, quote, "The Huron School District is communicating with its attorney and is cooperating with law enforcement. All policies, procedures, and laws are being followed." The full statement is included in this.
A Huron
Ladies and gentlemen, we got him. We got him, and it's all thanks to a young boy. A sixth grade teacher has been trapped in a sting by a 14-year-old kid. And you have to ask yourself, how many other situations like this exist out there? This kid has a bright future ahead of him, and I wanted to give him a big prop for that. All right, now, let's continue here with another young man who I think has a bright future. A high school student by the name of Marco Hunter Lopez. Yesterday, 16 years old, he was asked to testify before a House of Representatives hearing that was going on. And he was talking about his experience as a conservative high school student and the unfair treatment that he was given by the administration. He was trying to put together a group, and he was essentially thwarted at every turn. Now, during his testimony, certified piece of shit Jamie Raskin was attempting to disparage this young man's character, and he was totally handed his ass. He got embarrassed by this young man during the hearing today when he attempted to lecture him on our nation's founding documents, religion, and heritage. This was before the House Judiciary Subcommittee on Constitution and Limited Government hearing that was held yesterday. And the title of the hearing was Sharia-Free America, Why Political Islam and Sharia Law Are Incompatible with the U.S. Constitution, Part 2. Now, this hearing was looking into how Sharia law's rise in our country poses grave risks to our way of life and our system of government. And Marco had come in to testify to blow the lid off of the radical left's blatant double standard that's currently right now happening in Texas public schools. Conservative students get censored. Conservative students get harassed. They get stonewalled for months. But these Islamic groups are basically handed the royal treatment so that they can push these sort of indoctrination courses on understanding Sharia. They hand out pamphlets. They hand out free copies of the Quran with conversion cards so that people can become Muslim if they want to. They also give hijabs out to young girls. Now, Jamie Raskin was not happy about this young man's testimony, the fact that he came out to tell the truth, and he decided to seriously bully this young man from his position on the committee. He basically rudely attempted to give Hunter a lesson in America's founding documents, and he twisted Hunter's own words to try to make him look like some sort of a religious freak. But then it backfired later when Raskin cited a famous letter by Thomas Jefferson in which he proclaimed a wall of separation between church and state in an attempt to drive home his secular view of American history. Hunter interrupted him and noted that this was a letter rather than an actual law. So let's go ahead and actually hear the clip of this interaction.
Was the first original 13 colonies that required a declaration of faith. So I'm not acknowledging that.
Oh, well, wait a second. Now, you're traversing my territory now, Mr. Hunter Lopez. You brought it up. Are you aware that the Constitution of the United States does not establish a religion? It forbids the establishment of religion. Are you aware that it doesn't mention God?
So the Declaration of Independence mentions God 4 times. But what I was going to say...
Is the Declaration of Independence law?
So Declaration of Independence was declaring our independence from the tyranny of England.
Yeah.
But
the
what I was trying to
Constitution's
finish
the governing
is that
law.
I'm not, suggesting that we need to go back to taking, tests or saying that you have to acknowledge.
Wait, do you know
religion.
that Thomas Jefferson was denounced as an infidel who wrote the Declaration of Independence because he didn't believe in the establishment of religion, and he and Madison were emphatic about separating church and state? That's the whole glory of our constitutional design in our history, that they rebelled against centuries of religious warfare between the Catholics and the Protestants and witchcraft trials, Inquisition, Holy Crusades. America proclaimed the separation of church and state, what Thomas Jefferson described in his famous letter to the Danbury Baptists as a wall of separation.
That was a letter, not a law.
Okay, so your position is that America is a theocracy?
You didn't let me finish my original statement, and I understand you have limited time, but what I was going to say is I'm not suggesting we need to go back to anything that's in writing, but what I am saying is we need to acknowledge...
Oh, I think we should go back to something in writing. I think we should go back to the First Amendment.
Oh, yes, the Constitution,
yes.
Obviously, but what I'm saying is that, how I said original colonies were requiring declaration of faith to run for office. I'm not saying we have
That's why we have a First Amendment.
What I'm saying is that we do...
That's precisely why Jefferson wrote it.
We do need to acknowledge our Christian heritage in America. That's what I'm trying to...
You can acknowledge whatever heritage you want, but you can't impose an establishment of religion on other people. That's the greatness.
I'm not suggesting that at all. I'm just saying we need to acknowledge our heritage. That's what I'm saying.
Well, everybody can acknowledge their own heritage. Do you agree with that?
American heritage, not just any heritage, is what I'm saying.
Oh, you don't think that you're allowed to acknowledge your Christian heritage or your Jewish heritage or your Muslim heritage?
I'm saying you members of Congress need to acknowledge American heritage.
Yes, indeed. And you know how we do that? By abiding by the Constitution of the United States, which is why that's exactly where I began. Ms. Tyler, what do you think about this?
It's so ironic to me that these bureaucrats are always so hyper-focused on the separation of church and state. Let me tell you what that was originally intended to be. When our forefathers came to America to declare independence from Britain, the idea of separation of church and state was that, well, I mean, first of all, back in Britain, the Church of England and the royal monarchy was like a power sharing agreement. That was the government. And so the Church of England was the official religion of the British people. And if you weren't a member of the Church of England, then obviously you would get persecuted, part of the reason that our forefathers came here. So the idea is not that we must deny God or that we can't talk about God or that we can't have God as some sort of proclamation when we're in school. You know, the idea that we can't pray because of the separation of church and state, that's bullshit. But they only refer to that in terms of Christianity. If they want to talk about Judaism, you know, they totally do. But more importantly, they seem to hyper-focus on respecting the views of Islam and Muslims. And they create prayer rooms for Islam. They create foot washing stations. They allow these kids to pass out Qurans or to pass out the conversion cards. They would never allow a Christian to do that. It's absolutely insane. And Jamie Raskin is a pompous, pretentious, self-important piece of shit. For him to go after this kid in that way and to badger him, not allowing him to even get to his point, it really tells you everything you need to know about his character. All right. Now, I do have an update for you on a story that we covered many months ago. There was a period of time where these deranged leftists on TikTok were really hot and heavy, putting out messages of violence, not only against President Trump, but against people who support him. It still happens, but it's not nearly happening as much as it was. And part of the reason it's not happening is because a lot of people...
See, as you can see, the more you around, the more you're going to find out.
A lot of people found out. And one of those people who found out was this woman right here. We played her original video for you at the time. She's a Sarasota resident, Desiree Doreen Sagari. She was tried and found guilty and has now been sentenced to over a year in prison because she went on her TikTok and she called her social media followers to urge on the murder of President Trump and President Trump's supporters. She was tried in the Middle District of Florida by the U.S. Attorney. She's going to be serving 14 months in prison for the interstate communication of a threat to injure. Now, in her original video back in August, she said, if we all get our guns and use our Second Amendment right, and you see somebody with a MAGA hat, pew, pew, that's what we do. That's the way. This is also a fundamental misunderstanding of what the Second Amendment means. The Second Amendment, the right to bear arms, is about the right to protect yourself from a tyrannical government. And of course, any person who might come up and deny you of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, if you have someone who is putting your life in danger, certainly you have the right, especially down here in Florida, to protect yourself from them. You have no duty to retreat down here in Florida. But what she is describing is just the wholesale murder of people that she doesn't agree with politically. Put them back in their basements, she said. Make them scared again to be racist, homophobic, and terrible, just awful, something expletive. MAGA people deserve to be terrified and scared to walk in the streets because they should know that real Americans are going to effing kill them. Pretty strong statement. Well, the U.S. Attorney's Office out of Florida has said that in their statement, according to evidence presented at trial on August 17th, 2025, Sagari posted a video on TikTok calling for MAGA supporters to be shot on sight. Sagari stated, if we all get our guns and use our Second Amendment right, and you see somebody with a MAGA hat, pew, pew, that's what we do, that's the way, that's the only way. While saying pew, pew, Sagari used hand gestures mimicking the firing of a gun. She further stated, put them back in their basements, make them scared again to be racist, homophobic, and terrible, just awful, blank. MAGA people deserve to be terrified and scared to walk in the streets because they should know that real Americans are going to mouths expletive kill them. When she posted that video, she included a caption, hashtag #CMAGA pew pew MAGA, starting a new trend. Hope that it catches on. Please spread the word, share this video, repost it, use the hashtag all over the internet. Let's go, guys. It's time to fight back in a potentially effective manner. Well, the next day she posted another video to TikTok. CMAGA, pew pew MAGA, CMAGA, pew pew MAGA, CMAGA, pew pew MAGA. So these effers know we ain't here to play, again, while using the hand gesture of a gun. Of course, the FBI investigated. They determined very quickly that there was grounds for her to be indicted. She was. She has now since indicted in September, about a month after her initial video, and of course is now being found guilty. And here is a picture of her wearing her orange is the new black clothes. Gotta love it. I'm very happy to see that they move quickly on these cases. These people are insane. And if we're going to talk about teaching lessons, well, I think this is an excellent opportunity to do so. Why do I keep closing the wrong tab? Okay, so that one definitely need to close. That one definitely need to close. All right, now, we are now going to talk about what the title of the show is about, and that is about the situation in Michigan. Now, yesterday, a report came out from the Department of Homeland Security relating to illegal aliens and some of the worst criminal illegal aliens that you can possibly find. Now, you all probably remember when we reported back in late of October 2024, there was a Chinese student at the University of Michigan. He returned to early voting in Ann Arbor, Michigan. He had just illegally voted, but he wanted to retrieve his ballot after his roommate informed him that he had actually committed a crime by voting in that election. Why? Because he wasn't a U.S. citizen. He was a Chinese citizen, a 19-year-old by the name of Hao Xing Gao. He was there only on a student visa. But he was told by the clerk that it was too late. His ballot had already been tabulated and would not be returned to him. Now, because he self-reported his crime, the student got caught and he was charged with voting illegally. When it came time to appear in court, of course, he had already fled back to China. His illegal vote was actually counted by the state of Michigan. He canceled a vote that was cast by a U.S. citizen, which means that he stole a vote. And in the end, there were no accountabilities for his crime because he had fled from the United States of America. In September of 2024, 2 months before the election, Jocelyn Benson appeared before the U.S. House Committee on House Administration with other secretaries of state from key states, and she insisted that illegals voting in our elections was ludicrous, that this simply was just a conspiracy theory. We're doing everything we can to ensure that non-citizens are not able to cast a vote and that only U.S. citizens vote in our elections. And it's working. There's no evidence that non-citizens are voting, and if they were, there would be easy ways to prove since voting records are public. And despite numerous organizations spending a lot of money to try to convince people that non-citizens are voting, none of these groups have actually been able to provide any evidence of it, she told the committee. And we can see that right here.
What is the red line, right? Democrats say that there is not a significant number of non-citizens registered to vote, but yet there's still evidence of non-citizens on voter rolls, right? So we're being told by Democrats that it's not a significant number, but yet they're still on the voter rolls. So I'm going to start, I guess, from right to left, left to right, and just, I guess, tell us, what's the red line? What is the number that we think makes it significant? What is the number that would require the federal government to implement policies to prevent non-citizens from voting in our elections, one of our most sacred rights?
Congressman, it should be a zero-tolerance policy. In Florida, in 2000, 537 votes separated President Bush from Senator Gore. Small numbers matter in elections. Our current Speaker of the House lost his first race by 2 votes. If there were 3 illegal votes, that is overwhelming to his race. There should be a zero-tolerance policy when it comes to non-citizens.
Agree, zero tolerance. Every year, dozens of elections in Ohio come down to a single vote, and those are usually local elections, but those matter. We say every vote matters, we mean that, and we should not allow any non-citizens to be on our voter rolls.
I agree 100% with the previous 2 comments. Zero tolerance.
Agreed, and it is already illegal for non-citizens to register and vote, and I completely agree with that.
I agree as well. We're doing everything we can to ensure that non-citizens are not able to vote and that only U.S. citizens vote in our election, and it's working. There's no evidence that non-citizens are voting. If they were, it would be easy to prove since voting records are public, and despite numerous organizations spending a lot of money to try to convince people that non-citizens are voting, none of these groups have actually been able to provide any evidence of it.
So that's obviously not true. And that's the reason we are talking about it today. Because, of course, after the news spread about this Chinese student illegally casting a ballot in Michigan's November 2024 general election and then fleeing the United States of America to his native home country of China so that he couldn't be prosecuted, dishonest Secretary of State and Democrat candidate for governor that you just heard from, Jocelyn Benson, was, of course, forced to admit that actually illegals can vote, and sometimes they actually do. She appeared on a local Fox News channel to address concerns that Michigan voters rightfully had, voicing concerns in advance of that 2024 general election about illegal aliens, non-citizens casting votes in a state like Michigan. And she went in there and she was obviously pretty uncomfortable having to admit that, well, actually, this is something that could happen. She did say only U.S. citizens can vote in Michigan, but of course, only U.S. citizens voting in Michigan is not going to stop illegal aliens from going in and casting a ballot if nobody is checking their citizenship. She followed that up by blaming misinformation that's injected into our political discourse to try to provoke fear or even confusion about who can vote. Nobody is claiming that illegal aliens are not legally allowed to vote. Not being allowed to vote and going in and actually casting a ballot are 2 very, very different things. So Jocelyn Benson denied that illegal aliens or non-citizens voting in Michigan elections is almost, if not entirely, possible. Only U.S. citizens can vote in our elections, she said. There's no evidence that non-citizens are voting. There's ample evidence that only U.S. citizens are voting in our elections, and the reality is we have so many checks in place with our decentralized election systems that we catch it if anyone attempts to cast a ballot in any way or vote if they are not eligible. But there doesn't actually appear to be a record of anyone being punished for voting illegally during Jocelyn Benson's 2-year term, and she said, we hold people accountable. It's a significant risk, especially for non-citizens, to try and break the law in that regard. There is a very big difference between people never voting illegally in elections and people not being punished for having voted in elections. This Chinese individual is a perfect example of that. She said that it was a ridiculous assertion to claim that people were voting, and she used a study to try to prove her point that it's impossible for non-citizens to vote. There's been a study that says there's more people on the space station than there are people who have tried to vote illegally nationwide. So certainly it is infinitesimal when it does happen, but we catch it. So she does actually admit that it can happen on occasion. It's pretty difficult to uncover the status of non-citizens or illegal aliens on the voter rolls. And that's part of the reason Jocelyn Benson can step before a camera and claim that, well, illegal aliens are not voting, because it's so difficult because nobody is checking the status of these people's citizenship. You can't prove that illegal aliens are voting in your elections unless you go and actually look for it. Now, the founder of Check My Vote, Fani Mantravati, is a researcher in this regard, and he discovered that the DHS's worst of the worst criminals list can actually give us a little bit of a clue as to whether or not these people are on the voter rolls. Now, the people that we're talking about today, 6 illegal aliens and also non-citizens who are actually in the state of Michigan registered to vote and who we can show using the publicly available information, have in fact voted in 2 to 3 elections. So these 6 criminal non-U.S. citizens and illegal aliens who are listed on the DHS worst of the worst list are also listed on the registered voters in the state of Michigan. Now, all but one of these 6 men illegally registered to vote in Michigan, and they have now been deported for almost the last year. But for some reason, despite the fact that it's known that they are illegal aliens and they're not even living in the state of Michigan anymore, they are still listed on Michigan's voter rolls, and they're still listed as active voters. These are perfect opportunities for someone with access to the voter rolls to go in and ensure that they do end up casting a ballot in the next election of consequence. So you have the first, Indira Gurung. ICE described him as a criminal illegal alien. He's got prior convictions for stalking, aggravated stalking, domestic violence, operating while intoxicated. He was deported back to his home country of Bhutan, and he is listed on the DHS worst of the worst criminal illegal aliens in Michigan. Here he is right there. He was living in Caledonia. He was arrested by ICE, it looks like in Detroit, near Detroit in Kent County on June 27th of last year during the execution of a criminal warrant. And he is no longer listed on that fugitive list because, of course, he is taken and sent back to his home country. So what can we learn? Well, on March 15th of 2017, when he was illegal, he registered to vote. This occurred before Jocelyn Benson was the Secretary of State, but he actually did vote during her term in Michigan state government. And he was also not an American citizen, but for some reason, he was able to vote in 2 different elections. Now, Jocelyn Benson removed the type of vote cast in Michigan elections after the 2022 election. So we can't see what type of vote he cast. Did he come in person? Did he send a mail-in ballot? Did he vote absentee? I don't know, but he definitely voted on Election Day in the midterms of 2022. And the reason I would guess that the type of vote cast would have been removed from the records is so that we would have a stronger argument to make as to who would be casting ballots illegally. So I doubt that he would have come in person. You know, I doubt that it necessarily was even him that cast the ballot. But we'll never know because they won't give us that information. He also voted in November of 2024, which is the general election for president. We also have another one, Wah Kong Lor, August 13th of 2025. The DHS announced that he has also been deported. He was an illegal alien, a criminal, a gang member, a pedophile, and a drug trafficker. And he was, of course, ordered to be removed by a federal judge decades ago, but continued to live in the state of Michigan without any sort of worries or care. Now, he was living in Pontiac, Michigan, also still listed as an active registered voter. He registered August 6th of 2018. That was during Jocelyn Benson's first term. Oh, look at that. He is a non-Uocava status because, of course, he definitely lived in the state of Michigan. This was the home that he registered to vote at. He was living with his wife and then 6 other individuals. He, of course, lived with 7 other individuals, all registered to vote at this address between 2020 and 2025. And you can see the dates of registrations for all of these people, all different times, but essentially 2020, 2024, 1, 2, 3 that were registered in 2025 throughout the year, another in 2023, and then another again in 2025. All right. Now, he also registered and actually voted. We have another one right here, another sex assaulter, a green card holder. He was a rapist from Iran. His name is Afshin Masheli. Masheli was arrested February of 2020. Excuse me. He was arrested February 25th of 2003 for first-degree criminal sexual assault. He was sentenced to 2.5 years to 50 years, and then he was resentenced to 5.5 to 25 years. He was released from jail, and then there's no records of him until he's arrested again in June of 2025 by ICE. He was living in Dearborn, same address where he was registered to vote, and he, of course, voted regularly. According to Check My Vote, we can see that he voted in at least 3 federal elections in Michigan. He registered to vote in 2013, which was after his arrest for being a sex predator. He voted in person in 2016, absentee in 2020, and then again in 2024 in the general election. Again, green card holders are not citizens. Even if he had legal status, he had no right to vote. It's a felony. I can't believe that they allowed him to stay after he was arrested and then sentenced to prison for rape. But again, this is Michigan. So that's the kind of thing that you can expect. He showed up in the United States in 1991 in Chicago. He had a visitor's visa. He did have authorization to remain until June of 1992. And then it was 1993 when he was convicted of first-degree retail fraud in Grand Haven. And then he was granted advance parole to travel to Mexico to complete his application for the adjustment of his status. In November 93, he was paroled into the United States out of El Paso, Texas. And then in July of 95, he became a lawful permanent resident, despite the fact that he had this criminal record. And then it was 2003 when he was arrested and then convicted of criminal sexual conduct in the first degree, as well as the criminal sexual conduct in the third degree. He ended up spending a couple of years in prison, not all that long, but he also was not removed, and he was removable based upon the charges and the sentence that he received. In May of 2005, an immigration judge in Detroit denied his request for relief and ordered him removed to Iran. His appeal was denied in July of 2007, and he was given that final removal order. Now, his removal has not gone through, and court records show that it's because he refused to cooperate with repatriation officials. And he continued to live happily in the state of Michigan and continued to vote, even though he was never legally allowed to do so. All right, and then we have Senegaround Fenavalava. Don't know what that name is supposed to sound like, but he was a 47-year-old illegal alien. He was convicted of controlled substance delivery and manufacture, which would be ecstasy and MDMA. He's a party guy. He had weapons felony, firearms, controlled substance possession, either cocaine, heroin, or another narcotic, but it was less than 25 grams, so I think that they were okay with it. Now, he was also part of a gang. He was also a pedophile and a drug trafficker, and he was deported in August of 2025. The Tiny Rascals gang is who he hung around with in the Detroit area. He lived in Southeast Michigan for the last 20 years. He was an active registered voter at his address in Detroit, and he had been registered to vote since 2014. So he should have been voting. Then we also have Saitong Tamanamakaka, something like that. He's Laotian. He also was involved in fraud, driving under the influence, cashing bad checks, and also possession of dangerous drugs. He had a daughter who lived here in the area, and she asked for help to prevent her father from being deported because she is a citizen. He was, however, removed and sent back to Laos, and he also voted in a number of elections here in Michigan. And then finally, we have another convicted rapist, burglar, sex offender named Liam Vananavanang, something like that. And he was also on the 6 worst list: burglary, probation violation, sex offense, and rape. He was also sent back to his home country. He purchased a home. He actually owned a home in Holland, Michigan. Holland, Michigan is a very nice area. Let me tell you, it is right there on the beautiful shores of Lake Michigan. They have beaches that are white sandy beaches. It looks like a tropical paradise, except that it snows there. It's gorgeous. But he lived there from late 2020 until around 2004 to early 2005. He owned that home for approximately 4 years and 7 months. He sold it in September of 2025, 2 months after he was deported. He had been registered to vote in Michigan since 1997, and he was deported in July of 2025. And he is, of course, still actively registered to vote in the state of Michigan. So tell me again how this doesn't happen. Oh my gosh, it's actually worse. A county clerk has found 198 more non-U.S. citaizens on the voter rolls, and they are also, of course, on the jury duty rolls because the databases for those things are both coming from the same place. Now, Anthony G. Forlini, he is the Macomb County clerk, and he says, actually, Jocelyn Benson, non-citizens are all over our voter rolls. Now, she continues to say that there is little to no possibility of these people voting in elections, but I don't think she's commented on whether or not they should be able to serve on juries. Of course, they shouldn't be able to serve on juries because there is no world that I can imagine where I could go to another country and live there illegally and then sit on a jury of the peers of a citizen of that nation and be able to cast judgment upon them. So the press release that was put out by Clerk Forlini on the 13th said that in the first quarter of this year alone, 198 non-citizens were summoned for jury duty, and they were forced to self-report with green cards and other proof that they are not American citizens and ineligible to serve. Of those 98, 11 were registered to vote in the qualified voter file, and a shocking 7 remain listed as active right now. Now, Forlini began looking into this earlier in the year, and he had attempted to have this remedied with the Michigan Bureau of Elections, but it appears that they're not interested in helping it get sorted. In January, his team had discovered another 239 non-citizens who were listed on the Macomb County jury pool, and that was over a 4-month period. 14 of those 239 were also registered to vote. As of today, 10 of them are still actively registered to vote. 4 of them have voted, and they have voted on multiple occasions. So I think we've pretty much disbanded Jocelyn Benson's own conspiracy theory that it is impossible for illegal aliens to come in and register to vote or vote in U.S. elections, because it seems to happen quite often in the state of Michigan. So I don't know, maybe Jocelyn Benson will address this at some point in the future. I doubt it, but maybe it will happen. All right, you guys. Now, before we continue, very quick message from our friends over here on Rumble. You guys, have you ever wondered what it might feel like to shoot with the same type of precision technology used by U.S. Special Forces? If you have, I've got good news for you, because after years of research and development, MCG Tactical has just dropped something incredible. It is the Stinger Combat Sight. It's not your average red dot. They use holographic technology. At one time, this was reserved only for elite military and law enforcement, and the Stinger delivers crystal clear precision. It's so accurate, you could hit a dime at 300 yards without even trying. This is the exact same level of technology used by the pros, but there is a twist, because most sites like this are going to go for around $600 or more, and people happily pay it for the accuracy. But right now, through this exclusive deal with MCG Tac, you can get this mil-spec sight right now for under $200, and it gets better, because for the listeners hearing this right now, you're actually going to get 67% off, and they will even cover your shipping. So you can just scan that QR code on screen, or you can go direct to mcgtac.com/redpill. Once again, that's mcgtac.com/redpill, and pick one up today. Now, the twist here is that they do have a limited supply, and people are purchasing them. So if you want to get a site built for the best, right now would be your shot. So grab yours today before they have to shut down orders. Thank you very much to the good folks at Rumble and MCG Tac. Appreciate it. All right. Now, continuing with our next story. Right here, this is such good news. I can't tell you over the last couple of years how many stories we've been forced to cover about foreigners, non-domiciled CDL drivers causing accidents on American roads and killing American citizens. There was just a case decided unanimously 9-0 in the U.S. Supreme Court. And this decision allows freight brokers to be held liable if they negligently hire these unsafe trucking companies. This is part of the massive fraud scheme that we have going on right now all across the United States. What these people do is they come to the United States. They might come here illegally, or they might get green cards. They might end up overstaying their visas. They don't know how to speak English. They don't know how to drive on American roads. They don't know how to operate a big rig like this. And they will get jobs subcontracted to larger freight carriers. The larger freight carriers will subcontract to one of these companies. Oftentimes they have rotating names. They might have fake numbers that they're using, and they put these illegal aliens or non-domiciled CDL carriers on the road, and then those people end up killing American citizens. Well, now if a freight company does that, they can be held financially liable. My friends, this will overnight put out of business all of these illegal alien Indian freight carriers that are operating all across the United States of America. This is going to put them out of business, because if these freight carriers do not be careful about who they're going to hire, then that means they're going to get sued. So that also means that American freight carriers, American subcontractors that could come in and do this work, people who are U.S. citizens and who have been otherwise shut out of the process, are now going to find themselves with a lot more work on their plate. Now, we've had a lot of work done by the Department of Transportation attempting to get rid of all of these non-domiciled CDL carriers, people who have been given driver's licenses without names or with fake names. And up until this point, many states have agreed to do that. That has already happened. But places like Pennsylvania and California, they have allowed these people to remain on the roads. Even if they are still here and they have refused to leave, to self-deport, now these freight carriers are going to have a big incentive to make sure that they are never driving for them. Here is just two tragic incidences of this happening. One of them down here in Florida, and then another one happening in another state. Both of them appear to be Indian Sikhs. Neither of them know how to drive a truck. Both of them resulted in needless death. You can see here, this guy does a U-turn on a Florida highway. It's 95. It's right up the street from me. And in doing this U-turn, a family of 4, I believe, plowed right into the back end of this trailer. All of them died. And this guy could seriously give less than a shit. Up on top, this guy's drunk, and he plows right into the back end of 1, 2, 3, 4. And then as he's driving away, explodes, boom, hits 2 more vehicles. Who knows how many vehicles behind him coming up in the other lanes were also hit. Now, this was Montgomery versus Carib Transport LLC. The petitioner was Sean Montgomery. He was injured after his tractor trailer was struck by this other truck driven by one of these non-domiciled CDL carriers. Not only did he get injured, but obviously the equipment and the stuff that he was traveling with was also heavily damaged. So now they can all be held accountable, and hopefully we're going to get all of these bastards out of our country. Also want to say thank you very much to the Nun Report for rating the stream. Appreciate that, brother. Thank you also to Sean Joe for 2 cookies. Thank you to Filter Dog. North Carolina has 34,000 dead people on our voter rolls. Yes, Michigan has plenty of dead people as well. North Carolina, knowing they have the dead people on, just like Michigan, refused to remove them. Coffee Talk with Sandra. Good to see you, Sandra. A year anniversary party. We will have music, conversation, and a panel and giveaways at 6:30 p.m. Central Standard Time, which, of course, for me down here in Florida would be 7:30 p.m. Eastern. Go hang out with Coffee Talk with Sandra. Sandra, if I'm still live when you're going live, I will do a raid for you. Sean Joe, thank you for the cookie. Filter Dog says non-citizens vote in Michigan. Yes, they do. Let me see if this is any other information than what we just went over. Yeah, this is the same article that we just went over. Okay. Tracy S., thank you very much. Kent County is the Grand Rapids area, not Detroit. Oh, did I say? Okay, sorry about that. Anyways, yeah, Kent County is definitely Grand Rapids. What was I thinking? I don't know. Sorry, I misspoke. Regardless, thank you for that. All right, now, continuing the conversation about illegal aliens, we just got word that Border Patrol Chief Mike Banks is leaving his post. He's not being fired. He just said that it's time for him to go and retire and spend some time with his family. He said it's just time. I feel like I got the ship back on course from the least secure, disastrous, chaotic border to the most secure this country has ever seen. Time to pass the reins. 37 years. It's time to enjoy the family and the life. Once again, I say that Commander Greg Bavino is still available. I think we need to bring him back into the fold. He should definitely be running Border Patrol, or he could be running ICE. Either of those would be good. Cyrus the Great, good to see you, homie. He says, I own trucks. There's some Amazon independents who hire illegals. I've been waiting for legislation to fix that. I report them all the time. Well, none of those people are supposed to be getting jobs, and that obviously is a big problem. So are they, if they would necessarily be needing to carry a CDL, and that's already being addressed by the Department of Transportation. So I don't know what else you could do other than reporting them, and I would report them to the Department of Transportation and to as many different agencies as you possibly could. Yes, bring back Bavino. Greg Bavino is awesome. Love that guy. All right, so Banks has been the Border Patrol chief basically since President Trump came back into office, and he is not leaving on bad terms. He said that this is the honor of his lifetime, and he wrote to all of the Border Patrol agents kind of going through all of the accomplishments that they've been able to achieve. Yes, you know, you had the pretty good shots in Minnesota, but I don't care. I really don't care. Those people were fools. They never should have been putting themselves in that position to get ventilated in the first place. Banks was serving as the Texas border czar for Governor Abbott when President Trump appointed him to be border chief. And This is obviously leaving openings both at the Border Patrol and at ICE. We have the new interim appointment in Dave Venturello. Spoke about him yesterday, but we don't know who is going to be the replacement for Banks. Certainly, it ought to be somebody who is just as good on the subject. Now, we have talked about immigration from so many different angles, but the one piece that always seems to be missing is Congress's efforts to attempt to remedy the situation that they created. Well, Representative Andy Ogles is, I think, the guy to do that. He and Senator Tommy Tuberville have put together something called the 83-page Assimilation Act. The Assimilation Act, he says, is the product of months of labor undertaken by my staff and Senator Tuberville in order to gut the Hart-Celler Act of 1965. This is the original piece of legislation that opened the United States of America up to the invasion of foreigners that we now see essentially coloring our conversations every single day. The Assimilation Act will also scrap a number of provisions from the Immigration Act of the 1990s. The goal of the bill is pretty simple. We need to end replacement migration and ensure American cultural cohesion. This bill will end the H-1B scam. It ensures that migrants never become a public charge, and it makes America look like America again. FYI, net immigration immediately decreases by 85% under this bill. Net immigration is already down quite a bit due to the efforts of President Trump, but I will take any continued decreases that we can get. Here are a couple of other things that Congressman Ogles wants us to know this bill does. Number one, it sets a national interest standard for anybody who wants to immigrate to the United States. It places on mandatory for mandatory use a stringent character test. So if you've got claims of criminal actions in other places, if you're a sex offender, if you're a thief, if you're a fraudster, you wouldn't be able to migrate here. It also has a mandatory e-verify component, so your identity must be verified. It completely ends chain migration, which is huge. Got to have that. It ends the diversity lottery, which also must be ended. It guts birthright citizenship. It enforces way tougher asylum standards. It has stronger public charge rules. It has a 10-year citizenship requirement. I would imagine that means that you come here, you have to prove yourself for 10 years before you can become a citizen. And then you also have to be proficient in both the English language and American civics. So right now, this is about to go before the House, and if the House passes it, then it goes to the Senate. If the Senate passes it, it becomes law, and that is exactly what we are looking for. So thank you very much to Representative Andy Ogles. Now, Andy Ogles, if you'll remember, was also attacked during the Biden administration because they tried to claim that he was doing something illegal. Really, I think they knew that he was based, and they wanted to take him out with lawfare before he could do any damage to the Biden legacy. Here is Andy Ogles and Tommy Tuberville on the Assimilation Act.
Hey everybody, Congressman Andy Ogles here with Coach Tommy Tuberville. Now we've got the Assimilation Act. So real quick, we just did a Fox Media hit. Why is that so important for you, and of course, and for me as well?
Well, our immigration policy, Andy, is broken. It's broken. The Biden administration allowed 20 million people to come in this country. They brought people from third world countries. They're not assimilating with American values. They don't get along with people in this country. They wave their own flags. They don't want to be Americans. They don't want to go by our values and customs. And if they don't do that, they need to go home. And that's what this Assimilation Act says. We need to reward people that assimilate, that come here from other countries. We need to get away from this lottery system that gives visas out. We just need to do things that are good to make things work for people that come into this country that want to be true Americans.
Well, Senator, it's an honor to work with you on this. I hate to say it, when you're governor, you're going to be missed around here because you're a true champion. Well, thank you so much, sir.
Thank you.
You know what's so great about this is obviously Ogles is in the House, Tuberville is in the Senate. They created the bill together, so there's not going to need to be a reconciliation of two different versions of the bill when they put it up for a vote. Let me also mention to Tamana over there on Rumble. So when you move out of the state of Michigan, when you're registered to vote in Michigan and you leave, you got to call your county clerk. You got to contact the Secretary of State, and you need to tell them that you're not living there and you're not voting there, and you want to make sure that you are taken off of the voter rolls, because they're not going to take you off of the voter rolls. Even if, you go to another state, you register to vote in that state, you get a driver's license in that state, you're still going to be on the Michigan voter rolls. And that is because obviously they don't want to lose anybody from the voter rolls. So it is incumbent upon you to make sure that you're taken off, because somebody could vote in your place in the state of Michigan. And if that happens, then you might end up being charged by, maybe another state that you've moved to. I talked about a case where a woman moved from Georgia to Florida. She registered to vote in Florida. She lived here for a couple of years. She voted in Florida. Somebody else voted in her stead in the state of Georgia. They charged her for voting in two places. Luckily, she had records for her time down here in Florida. She showed that she was working in the state of Florida on the date that somebody voted in person in her name in Georgia, and so the charges were dropped. But yeah, Tamana, you definitely need to let them know, because they are never going to remove you from the voter rolls in Michigan. They want to keep you on, and they want to use your name to vote in an election. So, all right, so great news on the Assimilation Act. Looking forward to seeing where that goes. All right, now, a lot of attention paid in terms of the federal case against Dr. Anthony Fauci. But I don't think we've ever talked about the possibility of a state case against Dr. Anthony Fauci. So, is Texas the answer? Is Texas where we can get Dr. Anthony Fauci while we're still waiting for federal charges to be brought against him? Well, right here, a guest author at the Gateway Pundit, Paul Gardner, has written an essay on how Texas could, in fact, do just that. Now, Governor Greg Abbott recently said Dr. Fauci's actions and policies harmed a lot of Texans. I've directed our Major Crimes Division to open an official investigation. Somehow I missed that statement from Governor Abbott, but it further stated in this report that Abbott says he hopes to be able to charge Fauci with the deaths of tens of thousands of Texans. Well, here's the other thing that would be great about a state-level charge against Dr. Anthony Fauci. As we've learned, state charges and federal charges are completely separate. So a federal pardon for Dr. Anthony Fauci, even if it is allowed to remain in place, would have no bearing on the state case against Anthony Fauci. Take a look at the situation with Tina Peters in the state of Colorado. Their contention is that President Trump's pardon for Tina has no bearing on that state case. Well, okay, if that's what they want to do, that's what they want to do. I still think that Dr. Fauci's pardon from the auto pen will not stand up to legal scrutiny, but there's nothing that says we can't get Dr. Anthony Fauci in a state case while later getting him in a federal case, because yes, he was involved in a grand conspiracy. And you think about it, Texas is the perfect venue for this. Texas, under Attorney General Abbott, was the only state to stand up during the 2020 election and talk about the aggrievement of Texas citizens when that election was stolen. Certainly, Governor Abbott is correct. Deaths of citizens in Texas happened as a result of the actions of Dr. Anthony Fauci. So this directive he's given to the Major Crime Section of the Texas Department of Public Safety Criminal Investigations Division is very timely, because we've got this Department of Justice investigation looking into the charges that Dr. Anthony Fauci may have committed at the federal level. We've also got, of course, his statements, lies to the U.S. Congress. We've also got multiple henchmen for Dr. Anthony Fauci that are currently being indicted, being investigated by the FBI. Given all of these things, I think it's quite possible that Texas authorities could easily hold Dr. Anthony Fauci accountable. Not only Dr. Anthony Fauci. Why stop there? Why not go after others that operated in bad faith? There were many, many people in the public health apparatus that I believe could be held accountable for their horrible and egregious crimes, for the things they did against the people of the United States of America. Tens of thousands of people in Texas were affected by those actions, and hundreds of thousands of Americans, if not millions of Americans, were also held under scrutiny, held improperly, given improper medical care. And one might say that they were even murdered while they were under that medical care. You think about how many people were given remdesivir after the recommendation. What the hell? Hold on. Okay. You think about how many people were given remdesivir by Dr. Anthony Fauci. You think about people like young Grace, the daughter of a man who appeared on my program. Grace was essentially put to death by the hospital because she just happened to have Down syndrome and have been diagnosed with COVID. They gave her medication that stopped her breathing, stopped her heart, put her in the ground, and it was totally unnecessary. As soon as she was diagnosed with COVID, they brought her into the hospital, they quarantined her, they put her on a ventilator, and they basically killed her. And why do you think that happened? Well, that's because, yes, Grace Shara, young Grace Shara, they put her to death because of the advice, the unsound medical advice of Dr. Anthony Fauci and the American pharmaceutical establishment. So, yeah, I think they could definitely do this in Texas. You take a look at this, and they have been able to attribute some estimated 87,000 Texas deaths, people who perished in Texas hospitals only after they were given remdesivir as the treatment for the COVID virus. There are letters from the aggrieved family members of these Texas residents who were killed, requesting a criminal investigation of Fauci and others that are responsible for these deaths of their loved ones. You can read them online. Obviously, there were too many who perished as a result of this medical advice, so we're not going to be able to take a look at all of those. But many people would say that this was homicide, that this was premeditated murder. In fact, two highly respected healthcare officials, Health and Human Services Secretary Robert F. Kennedy and Dr. David Martin, both have publicly characterized the deaths of the hundreds of thousands of American citizens who perished in hospitals while receiving so-called treatment for the COVID-19 virus as a result of Dr. Anthony Fauci. Those public statements of Kennedy and Martin about the tragic use of the highly toxic drug cocktail remdesivir given to COVID patients that has never been challenged or refuted thus far. This is highly credible. We know Dr. Anthony Fauci's own drug trials on remdesivir showed that it killed people. It would shut down every organ in their body. Dr. Ben Carson, another highly respected medical professional from the United States of America, he said, what happened during COVID must not be quietly erased from history. We must have accountability, transparency, and honest answers, because forgetting what happened only guarantees it will happen again. Secretary Kennedy, Secretary of Health and Human Services, Robert F. Kennedy Jr., states that remdesivir causes liver failure, causes heart failure, and or all organ collapse, which of course is going to cause the death of the person that is given remdesivir. And the deaths of so many COVID patients were caused by one or more doses of remdesivir. They weren't caused by the COVID virus. Hang on. Back that up just a little bit. Okay. Now, Dr. David Martin says that any hospital or public health official who knew or should have known about the drug's deadly effects and then failed to stop giving this highly toxic drug to patients has committed reckless homicide at best or premeditated murder at worst. And if you'll remember, in April of 2020, Dr. Anthony Fauci mandated that remdesivir, also called Veklury, be used in hospitals to treat COVID patients, and the drug remained in use for the next 4 years and is perhaps even being used today. In November of 2020, the World Health Organization advised that the drug cease to be used to treat COVID hospital patients. But inexplicably, American hospitals continue to use this highly toxic drug for the next several years. A critical question that must be asked is, why did hundreds of thousands of COVID patients in U.S. hospitals continue to receive remdesivir? And why is it even still being used today? This, of course, is long after the World Health Organization said, no, you shouldn't be using this. Now, of course, I don't put a lot of emphasis on the advice of the World Health Organization, but when even the World Health Organization says, do not give people this drug, you might want to think about it. Well, Dr. Peter McCullough, if you will remember, states that hospitals received a big bonus. They got 20% of a COVID patient's total hospital bill when remdesivir was given to the patients. So that sounds like a monetary impetus to give people remdesivir. And then what's the problem if they die? And how are they going to complain if they die after you've killed them? Nobody's going to say anything. You're just going to get 20% of that money as a gift from Medicaid after these people have successfully shuffled off this mortal coil. And, of course, we know that there are other beneficiaries of people receiving remdesivir. The manufacturer, Gilead Sciences, they obviously benefited from the continued use of this drug, including one very particular public health official. That would be, say it with me now, Dr. Anthony Fauci. Dr. Anthony Fauci also had financial ties to remdesivir and Gilead Sciences. They allegedly benefited in a number of ways. They had public appearances that were paid for by Gilead. Dr. Anthony Fauci received royalty payments. There were increases in the ownership of Gilead stock in his portfolio. So there's all kinds of criminal reasons why these drugs were continuing to be administered to people here in the United States, and in particular in Texas. Homicides in Texas hospitals seem to have been inducements done for financial remuneration. Alleged violations of the Texas Penal Code could include capital murder, regular murder, manslaughter, participation in enterprise through racketeering. I like that one. Engaging in organized criminal activity, injury to a child, injury to the elderly, injury to a disabled individual, abandoning or endangering a child, elderly or disabled, or unlawful restraint. So Anthony Fauci should not be the only person investigated by the state of Texas. You could also investigate Cliff Lane. He was the deputy director of the NIAID. Francis Collins, he was the ex-director of the National Institutes of Health. Deborah Birx, a.k.a. the Scarf Woman. She was the ex-White House COVID response coordinator and the former director of the DOD HIV research at Walter Reed Army Institute of Research. You could also investigate Rochelle Walensky, the ex-director of the CDC, Stephen Hahn, the ex-director of the FDA, Robert Redfield, the ex-director of the CDC, and the administrators and healthcare providers for a variety of hospital systems and facilities providing care to patients in Texas, which includes, but is not limited to, Baylor, Scott, and White Hospital System. Now, the CDC statistics indicate that the hospital deaths of over 1.2 million people in America are attributed to the COVID-19 virus. But based on letters received from aggrieved families in 7 states, not only in Texas, it's estimated there's upwards of 80%, or maybe around 900,000 Americans nationwide who perished in hospitals, primarily died due to the mandated use of toxic doses of remdesivir. Now, in Texas, CDC statistics indicate that upwards of 109,000 hospital deaths are attributed to the virus, with an estimated 80% of those hospital patients, roughly 87,000 people, having received 1 or more doses of remdesivir. So I think there's a good possibility that we could get Anthony Fauci on this stuff. And I just wonder if there isn't a possibility of delivering this particular detail to Attorney General Ken Paxton. Because if this were to happen, if this was to go down before Ken Paxton leaves, then we could get the ball rolling and we could bring some justice for these people. Thank you to Bobby1960. Is it possible for a Texas investigation into deaths that could lead to the death penalty making Fed charges moot? No. State charges and state death penalty does not invalidate federal charges or the federal death penalty. In that instance, if Anthony Fauci was to be tried both at the state and federal level, and he was subsequently found guilty at the federal level after having been found guilty at the state level, the federal government would likely just ask for the privilege of putting Anthony Fauci to death, because you have the death penalty in both Texas and at the federal level. They might actually fight over who gets to do that. But because of the because the federal government would generally take priority over state actions, then, you know, he could live out a portion of his sentence at the state level and then, you know, be moved to federal custody, but they might just end up putting him in federal custody because it might not be as nice. So, but good question, Bobby. Denise Ann says, Zach, Fauci needs to be held accountable for all the murders he committed during his research on AIDS. He is a disgusting piece of shit. Also, maybe we should let the sand fleas after him. I don't have any problems with that either. And yes, I agree with you. There's no shortage of crimes that Dr. Anthony Fauci could be found guilty for. Yeah, so pretty disgusting behavior on Dr. Anthony Fauci's part. All right. Next story here. We're going to get into some judicial activism. Also looking at Texas. So the Texas Supreme Court Justice James Jimmy Blacklock has just written a scathing letter to a judge out of Dallas. Now, this judge in Dallas, despite the fact that it's 2026, has some pretty insane preconditions for entering her court, including forcing people to wear COVID masks. So Justice Blacklock is demanding answers from Dallas County Judge Demetria Benson. Now, he's accusing her of requiring the use of masks in her court. Also, I guess she has like intrusive health disclosures that she requires people to sign as a condition of entering her courtroom. He wrote the letter yesterday, and he is warning Dallas County Court at Law Number 1 Judge Demetria Benson. He is aware of no legitimate basis under Texas law for conditioning access to a public courtroom on a mask mandate or heightened health screening. In the letter, he gives Benson until 5 p.m. tomorrow to either clarify that no such policy exists or to explain the legal basis for the restrictions or withdraw them entirely. Now, knowing that there are no legal basis for her to put these restrictions on people, she is going to be forced to withdraw them. But she is a strong black woman, and I don't think she's going to like it. I'm sure that she's going to have something quippy to say about it. He said, "It's come to my attention that you may be requiring people entering your courtroom to wear face masks and to divulge intimate information about their health. If this is true, please carefully consider whether you have legal authority for these actions." She doesn't. And the sad thing is that many of these judges seem to believe that they are above the law. It doesn't matter that they don't have the legal authority. They see themselves as judge, jury, and executioner, king or emperor in their courtroom. So Blacklock directly pointed to a passage from the Texas Constitution, Article 1, Section 13. In that particular passage, it guarantees that all courts shall be open. The very fact that she is requiring people to divulge private and personal information about their health or forcing them to wear a mask in order to come into her courtroom, it immediately invalidates that passage there. The courtroom is not open because you put preconditions upon entry. He says, I am aware of no legitimate basis on which a Texas judge may condition a person's presence in a courtroom or on a mask requirement or on a heightened health screening. This is a pretty stunning statement because he is the state of Texas's highest judicial officer, and it signals that the judicial leadership in Texas may now be increasingly unwilling to tolerate these sort of lingering actions taken by judges, COVID-style mandates, years after the whole thing got blown up in their faces. Blacklock also invoked Rule 10F, which is from the Rules of Judicial Administration. It gives the Texas Supreme Court the authority to direct lower courts to amend or withdraw local rules, standing orders, or policies that they deem to be unfair or unduly burdensome. The Chief Justice's letter also prompted reports that Benson's courtroom may be enforcing these mask requirements and requiring visitors to disclose public health information before they enter. He also cited the reporting from the Texas Law Book, which looked into this issue and found that Demetria Benson was doing this. So good for him. And this is something that we just simply don't see enough of. Higher courts slapping the asses of lower courts. All too often, they just seem like they let them do this and they can get away with it. Number one, Indiana Dad, thank you, sir. He says, issuing a $5 challenge to fellow Zakiacs in appreciation for what he does and for his lovely wife. Okay, I think maybe you meant to say where we go one, we go all, but it says WE go one, go all. But either way, Mohap, thank you, sir. I appreciate it. Also, thank you very much to Ham Solo with some shades. It's happening. Let's effing go, MAGA. Fuck FAGA. I like that. That's funny. Okay. All right, you guys. Earlier today, the attorney for Fairfax County, Virginia, was asked to come in and testify. This is the local prosecutor that I had told you about, I believe, earlier in the week, who had gotten some attention for not prosecuting some really, really heinous people. And one of those non-prosecutions, which just happened to be for an illegal alien, ended up in the murder of a young woman. Now, I'm going to play you this clip right here, which includes a small statement from this prosecutor. He actually apologizes to the mother, but the mother also reads essentially a victim impact statement talking about the cause and effect that this prosecutor has had in her life and certainly on her daughter's life, which, of course, she no longer has. Really terrible stuff.
Stephanie Minter, whose mother, Cheryl, is here today. And Miss Minter, I am deeply sorry for your loss. And I say that not only as a prosecutor, but as a parent of a daughter. I am sorry for what you are having to endure. And I promise that my office is doing everything we can to prosecute the man responsible.
The far-left prosecutor in Fairfax County, Virginia, apologizing to an angel mother in a hearing earlier today on the dangers of sanctuary policies. The prosecutor and sheriff there have come under scrutiny for their handling of a string of cases involving illegal immigrants.
Would we be safer if he wasn't in the country then? Would we be safer, yes or no?
Sir,
yes or no, or to be safer if the man wasn't in the country? Damn it, answer my question.
Sir, I'm trying. You keep changing the question.
No, it's yes or no. There's a bad guy that murders people. Are we safer that he's not in the country?
If somebody is...
Nope, you can't answer the question. I'm sorry.
Former Virginia Attorney General...
How in the hell can you not answer that question? I'll tell you. He can't answer the question because he knows the answer is yes. But of course, they want to destroy America and they want these criminals running the streets. They want illegals to come in. They know that ultimately it leads to the opportunity for theft and grift and votes and, of course, the demoralization of society. There's all kinds of reasons, but ultimately it's the destruction of our nation.
Jason Myaris was at that hearing. He is going to join us here on America Reports in moments. But first, let's get to our congressional correspondent, Bill Malugin, with more details on that. Bill.
Hey, Sandra. Well, the Fairfax County Commonwealth Attorney got absolutely grilled by House Republicans during this hearing today. That hearing also featuring some really powerful testimony from Cheryl Minter. She, of course, is the mom of Stephanie Minter, who was viciously stabbed to death at a Virginia bus stop back in February, allegedly at the hands of Abdul Jallo, an illegal alien from Africa with more than 30 prior arrests and several charges that have been dropped by Fairfax County DA Steve Descano.
I am here because a system failed my daughter. If not for these failures, I could be sharing a cup of coffee with Stephanie this morning rather than speaking with you all today. When policies protect people who are a known threat, innocent lives are put at risk. When warnings are ignored, families like mine pay the price.
Well, Descano also testified that his policies do not protect criminal illegal aliens.
He may not have written policies that protect criminal illegal aliens, but the practice that he and his office engage in does exactly that. Here's another really tragic example where a criminal that was allowed to go by his office then ended up raping a 4-year-old girl. And this is a tremendous back and forth by a member of the committee calling him out for it.
They could not sentence this person to any term over 2 years. Is that not correct?
Sir, I'm so glad you brought this case up.
Is that not correct?
Well, because I would like to explain, sir.
It is correct. And the court rejected it.
Sir, I know the case file.
I'm talking. It was a judge that was appointed by Senator Warner. This is not a right-wing judge. This is a liberal judge. And you know why he rejected it?
Sir,
he saw what you should have seen. He cited overwhelming evidence.
Can we talk about the evidence,
This person was a threat.
I know it and you don't.
Quit talking.
And I would love to tell you about it.
This person was a threat. He yanked a 4-year-old girl out of her bed with the intent to harm her. And you wanted to give her a cap of 2 years.
Sir, this is
a great example. And then when the plea agreement was rejected, what did you do?
Sir, this is a great example.
What did you do?
This is a great example of a case.
You know, I've prosecuted. I've prosecuted
And
cases.
then you understand
and when you're evading like that, you know what that's a sign
sir.
of? Guilt. What did you do?
Sir,
you dismissed the case.
Sir, can I please
Mr.
talk to you about this case if you want to know about it so much?
Be quiet. When you dismiss a case, what happens to that defendant?
He walks free.
Walks free. A disgusting, perverted individual preying on children that you dismissed the case. As the father of 2 young girls, one of them's 5. That is as shameful as anything I have seen.
Talk to me
Quit defending the indefensible.
People in my
you clearly
community.
don't.
Absolutely not.
You dismissed the case and it's shameful.
Sir,
you're a coward. You are a coward.
You won't even let me talk to you about the case.
It's indefensible, sir. I yield back.
There really is no answer. And the fact that this guy continues every single time to try to justify, I mean, it is indefensible. The fact that the judge rejected the plea agreement, rather than give an appropriate sentence, he just dropped the charges and allowed this guy to go free. Absolutely shocking. I do have one more clip from this exchange, and this will be Jim Jordan questioning the prosecutor about his tactics. And again, he minces words, gets into some form of a semantic argument about his policies versus his statements. On his campaign website, he had made a statement about taking into consideration immigration status, essentially suggesting that he was not going to charge illegal aliens. He may not have that written as a policy, but again, in practice, this is exactly what he and his office do.
Sheriff, why'd you let Marvin Morales Ortiz out of jail?
Because I received a court order, a judicial order from a judge ordering his release.
Because the guy beside you wouldn't prosecute him, right?
You'd have to talk to him.
So this guy, the guy beside you wouldn't prosecute the guy who's an illegal migrant, who'd been charged with 6 different crimes, who was arrested for murder in 2020, who in 2023 assaulted a police officer, and who in September of 2025 was charged with aggravated malicious wounding and brandishing a gun. And that guy's released, you can't hold him because he's not going to be prosecuted. Is that right?
I'm not sure about,
That's what you told us. You sent us a letter on March 11, 2016, addressed to myself and Chairman McClintock, and you said on December 16, 2025, the Commonwealth's attorney moved to not prosecute the charges of aggravated malicious wounding and brandishing a firearm by Mr. Morales Ortiz. So you.
The sheriff here is a total snake, too. She wrote this letter to Jim Jordan, essentially trying to pass the buck on these criminals not being prosecuted or her not doing her job, holding them. She could have called ICE. She could have let ICE know that this illegal alien was somebody who shouldn't go back out on the streets. She didn't do that. But in her letter to Jim Jordan, she characterizes all of these decisions in one way. And then now that she's here before the committee, she doesn't want to answer. Very similar to what we see from the prosecutor. Let me say thank you so much to Misfit Angie. First of all, thank you again to #1 Indiana Dad. Thank you to Misfit Angie, who says, challenge accepted. Zach is the best. Love to Lisa. Thank you so much, Angie. Unicorn77 also says, challenge accepted. Happy Thursday Eve. Where we go one, we go all. Thank you, sir. Appreciate you. And Shallow93 with $20. Thank you for that, says for Zach and Lisa. I really do appreciate you.
You had to let him out, didn't you?
Through a court order by a judge, yes, I did.
You had to let him out.
I was ordered to release him by a judge.
I see you got some of your deputies behind. How's morale in your department, Sheriff? Is it good?
I didn't know I was here to talk about morale, sir, but based on
You're here to answer the questions we ask you. That's what you're here for. Yeah.
Of course I am.
Okay.
But I'm also here to talk about what I was invited here to talk about.
Well, I'll refer you to a statement you made in August. Fairfax County Sheriff Stacy Kincaid, Democrat, also told 7 News reporter Nick Minnick, it's shameful the way things have not been prosecuted. You stand by that statement?
If that's what was written, I do.
No, I'm not asking if that's what's written. I'm saying, did you say that, and do you stand by that, and is that having an impact on morale? Because most of the police departments I know and sheriffs and deputies that I know, when they get the bad guys off the street, they like to see them prosecuted so they don't come back on the street, harm the community you're supposed to protect, and make their job tougher because they got to go get them again when they commit some other crime. That's why I asked the morale question in light of your statement just a few months ago where you said it's shameful that the guy beside you is not prosecuting people.
I did.
You said that?
I did.
Okay, good. Mr. Descano, why'd you change your website?
Sir, first of all, let me address what you had said earlier.
You answered the questions we asked. You answered the questions we asked. I asked a simple question. Why did you change your website last month?
Well, sir, your statements about don't want to prosecute guys is absolutely false. And my policies so far in this hearing...
Are you saying what the sheriff wrote me is wrong?
No, what I'm saying is that the way that my policies have been
December 16th,
presented in this are outrageous.
She said the Commonwealth's attorney, that's you, chose not to prosecute Mr. Morales Ortiz on December 16th, and they had to release him. They had to do their job because you wouldn't prosecute. What happened on December 17th, Mr. Descano?
Well, sir, let's talk about December 16th.
No, that's the question. What happened on December 17th? This same guy murdered somebody. This guy murdered somebody, and I'm asking you, why did you change your website?
Well, do you not want me to talk to you about the actual case?
I want you to answer the first question I said.
Which was about the case,
Why did you change your website?
Well, sir, because the website is not my policy. My policy... You are referring to a campaign.
I think the voters might be interested in that. This is your campaign website where you said our office will take immigration consequences into account when making charging and plea decisions. Immigration consequences were certainly part of the game here, part of the issue here with Mr. Morales Ortiz.
No, they weren't.
You decided
they absolutely
not to
were not. You are assuming something that is in fact untrue, because you are misrepresenting my policies. My policies do not say that we do not prosecute people.
Well, if you're proud of your policies, why'd you change your website?
Because that's not my policy. As I told you, sir, that is a campaign statement that I made before I was Commonwealth
It had been up for 6 years. A week after we send you a letter saying we want you to come testify, shazam, you change it.
Because I could not.
Is that coincidental?
Because I could not believe that people were so obtuse that they could not realize what the difference between a campaign statement and an actual office policy is.
So when you make campaign statements, those aren't true? You're not being honest with your voters?
That's not what I'm saying at all, sir.
Sure sounded like it.
Sure
sounded like it.
It's absolutely not. What I'm saying is that when you
still haven't told me why you took it down.
Because I was hoping to come here to talk about my office policies, not be distracted by a campaign statement that was
Not be
made
distracted.
a year before I was actually Commonwealth's attorney,
General.
and had any cases that were mine.
This is almost laughable. This is your policy. You said it right here. You told the voters, if you elect me, I will take into account immigration consequences when making charging and plea decisions.
This is my policy, not what you have in your hand.
Oh, okay, so what you said to the voters is not real, doesn't count.
No, sir, what I'm saying is that as an office holder,
I just
my
find it
office
interesting.
is run by my policy.
Your sheriff said you wouldn't prosecute. This guy gets released, kills someone the next day. We start asking about it. You change your website and take down the statements that say you're going to take into account immigration consequences when you decide what you are going to charge.
And it has been public the entire time I've been in office, sir.
Absolutely incredible to see the mental gymnastics on this guy. Oh, no, that's just a statement on my campaign website. That's not the same thing as what we do in the office. And when you have, I don't even know how many examples, but you can see it right there. This guy has directly made these types of decisions, refusing to charge illegal aliens, allowing them to go. And time again, they do exactly what you would expect them to do. Rob, rape, murder, and even worse. So I can't believe this guy is even at this point attempting to justify any of this stuff. It is incredible that this is happening. And I don't know what the answer is, but I'll tell you what I think it should be. I think that prosecutors like this guy should have their credentials stripped. I think that they should be forced out of the practice of law. And I think that he should be charged criminally. I think that every single child, every woman, every victim should have the opportunity to have this guy held accountable. Because if it weren't for him not doing his job, then these people wouldn't have been able to go out there onto the streets and to commit these crimes in the first place. They would have already been rounded back up, left in prison to rot for the rest of their miserable lives, or you could just call ICE and you could just send them back to their country of origin. You know, another interesting thing happened yesterday with Jamie Raskin. Jamie Raskin, no shit, asked the question. He said, I don't know why ICE just can't come and pick these people up before they're released onto the streets. Like, are you effing kidding me? Do you not realize that the sanctuary policies and the Democrat state governments are directly telling prisons and jails in these states that they cannot call ICE. They cannot make them aware that they're going to be released. They will come and arrest them, but they have to know where they're going to be able to arrest them. It's not like the prison it's not like the prison records are linked up with an ICE database and ICE just gets a notification like, oh, you know what? On September 3rd, looks like we've got Hector Valdez. He's planning to get released from the Fairfax County Jail. We should probably have somebody there. There's only so many of these guys working around the country, and they're obviously busy as shit rounding up the people that they know where they are. So, yeah, Jamie Raskin literally said, I don't know why ICE just can't come and arrest them. Because they are intentionally being let go without any type of warning so that they can't be arrested, so that they can go back out on the streets to reoffend. Let me show you another stunning example of this type of shit. This time happening in Cook County, Illinois. I think we saw somebody from Illinois over there in the chat. So Democrats in Illinois had this pre-trial program for murderers and sexual assaulters, ostensibly the worst of the worst, the types of criminals that you definitely want to keep an eye on. They basically would allow them out of jail as they were awaiting trial. And what do you think a murderer and a rapist or a pedophile would do if they're awaiting trial in Illinois? Do you think that if they think there's a good chance they're going to end up in prison for the rest of their lives, they're just going to sit tight? They're just going to hang out and wait for the jail to call them or wait for the county to come and get them when it's time? No, at least a couple of them are going to leave. They're just going to disappear into the ether. And that's exactly what happened in Cook County. at least 8% of these murderers and sexual assaulters just fell off the grid. They just went missing. Now, 8% equates to 234 criminals. Murderers, attempted murderers, sexual assaulters, just bouncing, just leaving town. They have no idea where any of these people are. They don't know how to find them. They don't know how to round them up. Even if they did, I don't know how much of a difference it would make. But essentially in Cook County, you've got nearly 250 violent criminals who are supposed to be going on trial, not going on trial because they're completely in the wind.
It works out to 8% of the people on electronic monitoring in the pretrial program in Cook County and Chicago who are unaccounted for. Even the state's attorney says we should all be deeply concerned. This is the same system that was ignored.
And look at this guy. This is all pictures of the same guy. Most of them look pretty much the same, but holy jeez, look at him.
By Lawrence Reed, a career violent criminal with 72 arrests. His ankle monitor showed that he'd been out all night twice and was violating his curfew on November 17th of last year when police say he boarded Chicago's L train and set a complete stranger, Bethany McGee, on fire. This is the same ankle monitor system that was ignored by 26-year-old Alfonso Talley. Records show he'd been in trouble for all of his adult life. He disregarded his curfew to the point that he didn't get home to charge the battery and the ankle monitor went dead. Police say on April 25th, he went on a crime spree that ended with a mother of three, pistol whip with a broken nose, one police officer dead, another fighting for his life. 3,048 people were released pre-trial on electronic monitoring. Almost 20% of them are charged with violent crimes. 7% aggravated battery, 4% criminal sexual assault, 0.8% charged with murder, and 246 of them cannot be found.
Not only are they missing, they have no idea where they're at. None. Zero. They don't know if they're in the state of Illinois. They have no idea where these individuals are. So think about that. I mean, it's not like they could just go out and start looking for them, but they have no clue.
The system alerts on a low battery or curfew violation. After 48 hours, a judge can be notified, and that judge can issue an arrest warrant. But any sheriff's deputy will tell you there are thousands of warrants in the system. Without an alert on a specific individual, they get lost in the pile. But the Cook County chief judge did tell a local reporter yesterday that law enforcement is actively searching for the people who are at large. Sandra?
What does actively searching even look like? In a world where people can very easily disappear, I would imagine that these people are totally in the wind. They've probably gone to other states. They may be living under an assumed name. Very, very simple thing that you can do now. All I got to do is stay off of social media, wear a hoodie when they go out, and make sure that they've cut their ankle monitor off, and it's not going to be a big deal. Thank you so much to Mama Hood, I always want to say Mahmoud, for gifting a subscription to K Rumble. Also, thank you to G Fontes for gifting a subscription to Matter J. Appreciate that. Karamaga says, great show again. Thank you for that $5 challenge. Susan Boosin, good to see you, Susan. Crook County, Illinois. Is that Crook or is it Cook? Do they have both of them? I don't know. But we have the SAFE Act, and they don't get arrested. They just get a notice to appear, and most of them don't show up for their trial. Yeah, why would you? Why would you show up for a trial when you don't have to, when you know that they're soft on crime, when you know that pretty much nothing is going to happen to you? Absolutely shocking. All right, you guys, before we continue, I have another message from our friends over here on Rumble and my friends over at Neutronics Labs. Thank you very much to them for sponsoring the program. And, oh, that's the wrong button there. Here is the correct button. All right, you guys. Do you guys know, men in the audience, that right now in America, testosterone levels are at an all-time low? Studies show that there has been a generational drop in testosterone over the last 50 years. If you're around the age of 40, you can expect that naturally your testosterone levels are going to drop by 1 to 2% annually. But right now, men of that age already have much, much lower testosterone than men did from generations ago. And it continues to get worse. We've talked about this in a number number of shows. My friends, Dr. Bruce Fong and Ron Oliver, have joined me last weekend. I published an interview with them talking about this. A lot of this is going to be due to environmental toxins, the microplastics that are in the environment. This stuff disrupts your hormones and adds to it. And I think there's a whole bunch of other things that they're doing to us intentionally to make men less masculine, less manly. They want to turn us all into neutered trannies at the end of the day. But we are addressing that. And it's not just our hormones, but when you have lower testosterone than you're supposed to, you can have issues with your cognitive functions, your heart health, your metabolic health. And by supplementing the testosterone naturally found in your body with something like IGF-1, you can address those things. You can increase your lean muscle mass. You can reduce your body fat. You can increase your metabolism, and many different ways that it's good for you. And they've also recently done a study to show that IGF-1 actually actively turns back the clock on aging. And that is not something that you can say unless you have the scientific proof to actually show that. So to find out for yourself how this might be good for you, you can go to neutronicslabs.com/red pill. And if you order, you will get 50% off the product when you sign up for an auto ship. Plus, they're going to give you a free bottle of IGF-1 completely free. And you're also going to get an extra 10% off when you use the code REDPILL. So give it a try. Check it out right there. This is used by a bunch of guys that you may know, including Roy Jones Jr. And I want to say thank you to them for sponsoring the program. And definitely go check out the interview that I did with them last week if you are a man and you are concerned about making sure that your health is where it needs to be. Now, here is something else that the DOJ is doing to address the problem in the judicial system. It is one aspect of it. We've talked about this before. The bar system is a corrupt system used to control the actions of lawyers and people within the legal profession. It is essentially a partisan wing of the judicial system that is designed to make people, lawyers, as liberal as they can possibly be. Their actions have driven the decisions to a large degree that we see in these corrupt and liberal prosecutors, like the prosecutor from Fairfax County, Virginia. They also control the type of education that lawyers receive when they're going through law school. And they have also been behind the disbarment of a number of attorneys that were assisting President Trump in trying to make sure that our system has not been hijacked. So the Justice Department has just declared war on the D.C. bar in particular. For many decades, they've been abusing their power. They have filed a bombshell complaint against their disciplinary authorities. They say that they are illegally targeting federal government attorneys who have dared to serve President Trump. President Trump is the president of the United States of America. The president sets the agenda, and it is the duty of the employees of the federal government to follow that mission. And when they don't follow that mission, that's when we get deep state actions. That's where we get situations like the fifth column holdovers that we saw in so many different ways, and that John Brennan himself just mentioned the other day. Those people cannot be allowed to continue their actions. And the D.C. bar is a corrupt organization that cannot be allowed to continue putting pressure on these attorneys to stop them from doing the mandate that President Trump has set forth for them. So Attorney General Todd Blanche and the Trump DOJ have filed this complaint against the D.C. Disciplinary Counsel, Hamilton P. Fox III. He is in the D.C. Office of Disciplinary Counsel and the D.C. Court of Appeals Board of Professional Responsibility. The filing is advancing President Trump's executive order. You may remember it. It was called Ending the Weaponization of the Federal Government. He also put out a presidential memorandum on preventing abuses of the legal system and the federal courts. It seeks to shut down the D.C. bar's unlawful prosecution of former Assistant Attorney General Jeff Clark. He, of course, was a loyal supporter of President Trump. He was targeted by the Bar Association for his internal deliberations on the stuff that happened during the 2020 election. He believed there was fraud. He was trying to help President Trump make sure that he got a fair shake after the 2020 election. And Jeff Clark is still being sued and the subject of legal litigation after 6 years. This happened 6 years ago. So last week, the DOJ filed a statement of interest supporting interim U.S. Attorney Ed Martin. Now, Ed Martin also was attacked by the D.C. bar. They are trying to crucify him for his challenge to Georgetown Law Center's DEI brainwashing. He sent a letter to Georgetown asking them questions about their DEI policies, and almost immediately, the D.C. bar came after him, trying to take his law license. Of course, he's not going to be able to serve in that capacity in the Department of Justice if he doesn't have the right to practice law. So in March, we found that the D.C. bar's attempt to target and punish those serving President Trump while refusing to investigate or act against actual ethical violations that were committed during the Biden or Obama administrations by their attorneys is a pretty clear indication of their partisan agenda. So in the DOJ's memorandum, the Justice Department today filed a complaint against D.C. Disciplinary Counsel Hamilton P. Fox III, the D.C. Office of Disciplinary Counsel, and the D.C. Court of Appeals Board on Professional Responsibility over their improper use of bar discipline to regulate the official actions of the federal government's attorneys. The filing advances President Donald J. Trump's executive order ending the weaponization of the federal government and presidential memorandum on preventing abuses of the legal system in the federal courts. Specifically, the complaint seeks to nullify the D.C. bar's unlawful prosecution of former Assistant Attorney General Jeff Clark based on internal deliberations related to the fraud of the 2020 presidential election. Acting Attorney General Todd Blanche continued by saying, "Our complaint and history make clear the D.C. bar has long acted as a blatantly partisan arm of leftist causes. No more." President Donald Trump promised to put an end to the weaponization of the legal process, and today's lawsuit against the D.C. bar makes good on that promise. And the D.C. bar will no longer be permitted to probe sensitive executive branch deliberations and target executive branch officials with whom they happen to politically disagree. And federal attorneys will once again be free to share their candid legal advice with their bosses and colleagues. So last week is when they filed the statement of interest in support of U.S. in support of pardon attorney Ed Martin, who is seeking to have the D.C. bar's unlawful prosecution of him heard in a neutral federal tribunal. 3 former U.S. attorneys recently recognized that the D.C. bar's efforts to discipline Justice Department attorneys for making recommendations, factual assertions, and providing legal advice during confidential internal agency deliberations on law enforcement and sensitive public policy are totally improper and also constitutionally impermissible. If we can't get rid of the bar, then perhaps we can hold the bar criminally accountable for the illegal actions they're taking, seeking to punish those who are supporting President Trump and essentially trying to force them to be as woke as possible. All right, so Robbie Sunshine says, so you know why divorce is so expensive? Because it's worth it. I like that. That's funny. Okay, let me say also thank you to Sean Joe for 3 cookies. And thank you to Dale Bercier with the ship. Thank you, home. He says, much love, brother, and God bless you and your family. Where we go one, we go all worldwide. Steve says, Zach, the entire bar is illegal, and yet it continues. So let's go ahead and see what can be done about this. All right, now, today was the day that J.D. Vance visited the state of Maine to speak to them about the problems they're having with fraud and the fraud task force coming in and beginning the process of holding these people accountable. Now, in this instance here, he gives the people at this rally a little bit of information about a so-called immigrant in Maine who stole $15 million from Medicaid over the course of 5 years. Let's take a listen.
Here's the thing. Let me talk a little bit about just one person, because I think it highlights how bad the fraud problem has been in the state of Maine. We had an illegal immigrant in this community who said that she was providing services, interpretive services to other immigrants, okay? So Medicaid reimburses people to provide interpretation services for people who don't speak English, which, by the way, People should be speaking English in the United States of America. I think that's common sense. But this woman, her name was Rakia Muhammad. And it turns out that Rakia Muhammad was not a particularly upstanding citizen, okay? So while she said that she was providing interpretation services, do you know what she was actually doing? Providing zero services and collecting the $15 million over a 5-year period that was going directly into her pocket. And that happened pretty much during the entirety of the Biden administration, and no one in the Biden administration thought to step in and stop this ridiculous fraud. Now, I have 2 questions when it comes to Rakia Muhammad stealing $15 million from every single person in this room. Question number 1 is, why was this person in the United States of America to begin with?
Amen. Amen. We need to have standards for the people that we admit into this country. This is why I was so excited about Andy Ogle's and Senator Tuberville's bill, the Assimilation Act. We need to dramatically overhaul the system that immigration has wrought on our nation. And again, the only thing I didn't like about their plan is that there's no moratorium. We need a moratorium. We cannot continue to allow people into this country, even at a limited pace. There needs to be a full stop so that we can get our bearings, so that we can get a handle on this runaway train. It's absolutely insane.
Call me crazy, but I think that when we welcome new immigrants to the United States of America, they should be people who enrich our country and bring some good skills into our country, not a person who's going to steal $15 million from the people in this room. But second of all, why on earth are we allowing a person to steal $15 million from all of you without the state government lifting a finger to stop it? Why did it take Washington coming in from the outside to ensure that this person who is defrauding you is going to go to prison? And ladies and gentlemen, that's exactly what she's going to happen. Convicted guilty, and she's going to jail, which is where she belongs.
And then she needs to be kicked the hell out. If we're going to put her in jail, then make her time here as uncomfortable as possible and then remove her. I don't know if she's a citizen. I don't know if she's an illegal. All I know is that Rakia Muhammad should no longer be here in the United States of America. Now, also, J.D. Vance took a question from a reporter, from a contentious person in the crowd who, okay, so they basically posit a question to J.D. Vance about the level of fraud. Oh, this is nowhere close to what we saw in California, so why do you care? Sure, it's a lot of money, but, you know, it's not as bad as California, so should we even really do anything about it? Well, I mean, I want you to simmer with that for a second, because obviously Maine is a much smaller state than California. The amount of fraud is not really the issue. It's the scale of the fraud based upon the size of the population. In those respects, they're probably not too dissimilar. But the fact that the fraud is happening at all is an issue, and it never should have happened in the first place. And the state government, I'll answer a question that JD asked in that last segment. You know, why does the state not do anything about it? Because the state knows that they are benefiting from the fraud to the detriment of the people. They know that these individuals who get to commit the fraud are going to reward those state employees who allow the fraud to perpetuate. So it's all about the greed. It's all about the grift. It's all about remaining in power.
My question is, what else do you got? What else has your task force flagged that we should be concerned about? Because those amounts are a lot, 46 million, 1.7 million, but they don't really compare to California and Minnesota. What else should we expect from your task force? Thank you.
Let me. You know, here's the other thing. 46 million, 110 million, whatever. It's only what's identified thus far. And they've only just started looking at Maine. We know that it is much, much larger than that. But simply to say, well, it's only this, it doesn't matter. Any fraud at all is not okay. Any fraud at all should not be happening. Like, what if this guy had 2 cars and one of his cars was stolen? Well, it's only one of your cars. You still have another car, so it's not that bad. You can still drive. You just can't drive that one car any longer. Or what if you tell the owner of a service station, an American who owns a Chevron, and they only get robbed once a month? Well, it's not like you're getting robbed every day. It's only an armed robbery once every 30 days. So you should be grateful that it's not happening all the time. It's bullshit. Bullshit argument.
Let me say a few things. So, ladies and gentlemen, we've got biased reporters in all states. It's okay, trust me. I can handle it. But here's what I'd say. A few things. Number one, you talk about the scale of the fraud being less in Maine than it is in California. Well, California has a population that's much higher than Maine, so that's not necessarily a fair comparison. Number two, we've frankly been at this less long than we have in Maine than in other states. Okay, this is something where I would say, you notice a pattern, and you're right, innocent until proven guilty. But what I've noticed is a pattern that when you see certain types of fraud and certain types of programs, that's the tip of the iceberg. And when I see that autism services fraud in the Medicaid program in the Somali community, but not just that, I see local and state politicians who don't care about policing that fraud. That's the tip of the iceberg. And we're going to find out just how deep that iceberg is. And I suspect, I can't promise, but I suspect we are going to find hundreds of millions of more dollars every single month that we look in the state of Maine, because this is not a state that takes it seriously. And this is the third point and the most important one. I do not actually like having a contentious relationship between the state government and the federal government. We want people to help us find the fraudsters. It goes a lot quicker. It's a lot easier. It requires fewer resources from the federal government, but you find more fraud when you're working with people at the local level. What I find so preposterous about Maine, it's not just that we found tens of millions of dollars of fraud in a relatively small state. It's that we've had no cooperation from the state government. So when I say that the state government, when I say this is the third, maybe the fourth worst state when it comes to fraud, what I mean very simply is that you've got a governor and you've got a set of bureaucrats that don't care about fraud. And all I'm saying is Donald J. Trump and J.D. Vance, we care about fraud. We care about the people of this state, and we care about your tax dollars going to where it's actually supposed to go.
And what if there was no fraud? What if there was no taxes? Is it even necessary to continue to take taxes from us? Now, in the state of Maine, obviously, you've got a lot of state taxes. Luckily, I live down here in Florida. I don't have any state taxes. I don't got to worry about that. But a state like Maine, they're going to continue to dip into the pockets of those people. The inaction by the state government is tantamount to guilt, in my opinion. And I feel like most people would probably agree with that. Here is another example of Medicare fraud. This Yahoo right here, this guy owned a healthcare software company. He was just convicted of $1 billion in Medicare fraud. This is also down here in Florida. The Department of Justice crushed one of the most egregious fraud schemes in Florida history, Todd Blanche said. This illegitimate operation stole more than $1 billion from American taxpayers, including hundreds of thousands of Medicare beneficiaries. This was cold, calculated, industrial-scale theft targeting the sick and the elderly, coercing vulnerable people into buying unnecessary medical equipment. We will not rest until every fraudster ripping off the American people is held accountable. And he's a white guy. So, yeah, this is not about race. This is not even necessarily about national origin. I don't care if you're an American. I don't care if you're white. I don't care if you're black. I don't care if you're yellow. I don't care if you're red. I don't care if you were born in another country. If you are here in the United States of America and you're committing fraud, you are stealing from people, you are stealing from the government, you are unjustly and unfairly and illegally enriching yourself, I want you to go to prison. I want you to spend the rest of your life in prison, because this is not simply about the $1 billion that you stole. If this was a prison sentence commensurate with the size of your theft, $1 billion should put you in prison for the rest of your life, as far as I'm concerned. Because you've got a lot of people who are spending years and years and years in jail for a lot less than $1 billion in theft. And the number of victims in a case like this, Brett Blackman is this guy's name. He is from Kansas, and he and his co-conspirators aggressively targeted hundreds of thousands of Medicare and Medicaid beneficiaries to get them to accept these medically unnecessary orthotic braces and other items. His company was Power Mobility Dr. RX, and this was his house. I mean, the dude lived on the water. He's got a garage for boats. I mean, what in the hell? He made a music video talking about how wealthy he was. That's why he was wearing that ridiculous gold chain and those sunglasses and parading around in front of probably one of a number of homes that he owned. But this is disgusting. And the victims are not just the hundreds of thousands of people on Medicare. It's not just the government of the United States. It is also future generations of Americans who are now going to be saddled with the debt, because I guarantee you there's no way they got $1 billion back from this guy. A lot of that money is probably gone. And if he ever gets out of prison, I bet you he's still going to be living real good, because that money will be unrecoverable. I bet you they took what they could. I bet you they took his house. I bet you they took his pretty boat garage on the water. I bet you they took all of his cars. But I guarantee you there's a lot of money in a lot of accounts in a lot of different places that they probably never found. All right. Now, thank you to G. Fontez, who says gas is only up a couple of dollars from the few it was in February. My ridiculous argument to the fraud. There you go. Yes, that is good. Probably got a whole bunch of Bitcoin or a whole bunch of shit coins or a whole bunch of Solana or a whole bunch of ETH. There's a lot of different ways that guy could hide that cash. All right, now, we are going to end with the announcements that were made by the White House, because this summit in China was incredibly successful. Now, we have been saying for a long time that President Xi and President Trump are likely working together. And my contention has always been that President Trump's plan on the global stage is to essentially invalidate the old world order, which is the new world order, the deep state world order, invalidate these systems of global governance, the old unipolar world of Team America World Police becomes the multipolar world of regions of responsibility. President Trump brings peace to regions by ending wars and creating economic interdependence and cooperation. And this is exactly what President Trump has just done in China with this summit, bringing all of these American CEOs there. Now, take a listen, because President Xi says exactly to President Trump what I have said for a long time. The plan is for President Trump to bring peace to the world. We don't need to be enemies. We can be partners.
And a stable bilateral relationship is good for the world. China and the United States both stand to gain from cooperation and lose from confrontation. We should be partners, not rivals. We should help each other succeed and prosper together, and find the right way for major countries to get along well with each other in the new era. Mr. President, I look forward to our discussions on major issues important to our two countries and the world, and working together with you to set the course for and steer the giant ship of China-U.S. relations, so as to make 2026 a historic landmark and a
And I realized I was just muted on YouTube. Essentially, I just introduced the next clip. Xi started the the summit with that last statement, and here he's speaking through an interpreter, talking about how making America great again can also help make China great again.
完全可以并行不悖，相互成就，造福世界。
This is a historic visit. This year marks the start of China's 15th five-year plan for economic and social development. The over 1.4 billion people of China, drawing on the rich heritage of our over 5,000-year civilization, are advancing Chinese modernization on all fronts through high-quality development. This year is also the 250th anniversary of American independence. The over 300 million American people are reinvigorating the spirit of patriotism, innovation, and enterprise, and ushering in a new journey for the development of the United States.
Now, let me just point out, for anybody who has doubted that President Trump and President Xi might be operating clandestinely to help bring about the best for both of their countries, what Xi just congratulated President Trump there for is the reinvigoration of innovation and manufacturing and business here in the United States of America. It's inarguable that when the United States lost that, all of that innovation went to China, and it was past administrations who made that possible. Never forget that China, although oftentimes it's just, sort of presented as this monolithic thing where, all actions coming out of China are all from China, the same way the United States is portrayed overseas. You've got different regions of power, different groups that are in power within the Chinese government. And, what President Xi is trying to do may be counterintuitive to what other groups within China are trying to do. Just like what President Trump does here, you have the holdovers from past administrations. You have the deep state trying to operate against him. You've still got a good twin, bad twin operation taking place in China, just like you do here in the United States. So Xi is championing what President Trump is doing, which, if you only thought about China as a monolithic adversary, it would maybe confuse you, because what President Trump is doing here might be bad for China. But if we are doing this together, then it's good for both of us.
The people of China and the United States are both great peoples. Achieving the great rejuvenation of the Chinese nation and making America great again can go hand in hand. We can help each other succeed and advance the well-being of the whole world.
And advance the well-being of the whole world, which is exactly what President Trump is doing. I've got a friend who just cannot see the forest for the trees, always messaging me about how President Trump is controlled by Israel, Netanyahu is running our government, and I can say all I want to him. I can give him all sorts of factoids and real world examples, and he won't accept it. Okay, and I realize that there are some people who are like that. But at the end of the day, it doesn't matter what people believe right now, because the actions that President Trump are putting into play are fundamentally changing the world. One thing that I didn't get a chance to cover this week is that Benjamin Netanyahu publicly came forward and said, again, it is time for Israel to decouple from U.S. aid. We are going to stop accepting the $3.8 billion that Congress continually gives to Israel every single year. Why are we giving $4 billion a year to Israel? Why? Why in the world would we do that? There are people like my friend who look at what's taking place in Iran right now and say, oh, the only reason that the United States would do that is for Israel. Okay, well, if you understand what I just laid out for you, such as this summit taking place between China and the United States, creating economic interdependence and cooperation to further peace and development for every country around the entire world, if you think about what's happening in Iran from that perspective, then you can very quickly realize that it's not for Israel. It is for the entire world. It is for the people of Iran, And yes, it will even be for the people of Israel, but not because Israel wants to see Iran do well, not because they want to see Iran become a peaceful nation that cooperates with the rest of the world and has normalized relations. No, but because ultimately a Middle East that is free of conflict or the specter of war or power struggles or a nuclear threat, because that's good for everybody in that region. It's also good for the other Muslim countries that surround Iran. And again, as I've said so many times before, once Iran becomes a partner with the United States and a partner with the rest of the world, then there's no reason that Israel has to constantly go out and peacock and say we've got to destroy Iran because they're going to destroy Israel. Once the specter of that destruction is removed, the only thing you have left is peace. The only thing you have left is economic cooperation. The only thing you have left is making Iran great again, just like we're making America great again, just like we're making every region of the world great again. President Trump has ended 8 wars. He's about to finalize everything in Iran, about to end the war between Russia and Ukraine. Once we do that, for the first time in my modern existence, I think we're going to have peace in every country on earth. I don't know that we've ever had that. I don't know that we've ever been in a position where a U.S. president has gone in. Well, I know we've never been in a position where a U.S. president has gone in and ended all of these wars. If you think the United States of America is being run by Israel, then tell me this. Why would President Trump make peace in Gaza to give the Palestinian people a home without the threat of Israel coming in and bombing them out of existence? Because that's certainly what the government in Israel wanted to do. That's what they've always wanted to do. Why would it be possible? How could it be possible? Reconcile how President Trump would end wars and stop the need for wartime economies when a country like Israel has plenty of industries that are working directly to do that. They need to provide weapons to people. They make money off of that. Well, now there's just going to be other ways to make money. When we no longer have the threat of war, we only have the promise of peace. And that is what President Trump is doing. You have to be able to see the big picture in order to understand that. All right, now here is the statement from the White House on what this summit has achieved. This is the preliminary statement from the White House. President Trump had a good meeting with President Xi of China. The two sides discussed ways to enhance economic cooperation between our two countries, including expanding market access for American businesses into China. That is something we have not had. All of this China garbage being shoved into the United States, and we can't get our products into there. That is over. American businesses into China and increasing Chinese investment into American industries. Leaders from many of the United States' largest companies joined a portion of the meeting. The president also highlighted the need to build on progress in ending the flow of fentanyl precursors into the United States, as well as increasing Chinese purchases of American agricultural products. The two sides agreed that the Strait of Hormuz must remain open to support the flow of free energy. President Xi also made clear China's opposition to the militarization of the straits and any effort to charge a toll for its use. And he expressed interest in purchasing more American oil to reduce China's dependence on the strait in the future. Both countries agreed that Iran can never have a nuclear weapon. So, do you guys know where China is now going to be buying oil from? Since there's trouble in the strait, China is now going to be getting their oil from Alaska, because Alaska is actually closer than the Strait of Hormuz. Real quick, this is, I think that, this is just a clip going over that stuff. But yes, China is now going to be getting their oil from the United States of America. They're also going to be buying liquid natural gas from the United States of America. And all of this trouble has led us to this moment where President Trump is creating yet another excellent economic opportunity for the people of the United States. And yes, we are having some temporary pains, but ultimately we are talking about 1,000 years of peace. We are talking about the golden age. We are talking about the fundamental transformation of the entire world order. Rather than the new world order, it is the Trump world order. And I am so freaking happy to be here. All right. Now, let's see. Need to say thank you to S2G109, who says, thank you, Zach and Lisa. President Trump said he is giving our country back to the people. We need to learn our states and federal constitutions, all 51, the people who hold all political power. 51, are you talking about the District of Columbia? What's the one? But I don't disagree with you. Dale Bursier, thank you again for that ship. Also, thank you for an EMP. Awesome, because you and your lovely wife deserve it, sir. I appreciate you. Thank you very much for that. Also, thank you to One Thunder for the can. All right, you guys. I want to thank everybody for being here. I am very, very happy to be alive in this time. Don't forget, you can join me tomorrow at 5 p.m. Eastern for another exciting episode of Red Pill News Live. Thank you to Principled Enigma, who says, do not take this statement for granted. And if you know anything about me, you'll know I wouldn't make it lightly. What's going on is biblical. The second coming is close. I agree with you, sir, and I am extremely happy about that. Marine says, sorry, Zach, won't be 1,000 years, but appreciate your sentiment. It's a turn of phrase. You know, I have no idea how long peace is going to last, but I like to think that President Trump is working on creating a lasting peace. Nothing is perfect. Nothing goes without a hiccup, but I think I believe, I fundamentally believe that the changes that President Trump are making are being made in the interest of having them last. So however long it happens, if my lifetime ends up being the extent of that peace, then, you know, I'll spend the next 40 or 50 years able to enjoy it. We've talked about the concept of the fourth turning here on the program on a number of occasions. So if you know anything about the fourth turning, there's about a 70 to 80 cycle of rebirth, of prosperity, and then people get lazy, and then we go back into the death cycle, and then we got to go through the whole thing all over again. So, you know, if we have 70 or 80 years of good times, then, you know, that'll be good. But the nature of man makes it that, of course, we all end up making mistakes again, and shit gets bad. Thank you. Hold on, what was that just popped up? S2G109. We have 50 states and constitutions. The U.S. the U.S. Constitution is the 51. Okay, I get you now. So it makes, okay. I understand. I understand what you mean. Okay, so yeah. All right, guys, that's it. All the other sponsors of the show are in the description of the video. Thank you for being here. I'm going to go ahead and set up a raid for you. Let me see. I'll find something on Rumble, and then let me see. I also said that I would send people over to Coffee Talk with Sandra over on, hold on, over on Pilled. Let me get that set up, and then we will bounce off of here. And then I'm going to go get dinner with my wife. Okay, there it is. Okay, and back. Set the raid. Okay, she's not live yet, so I guess I'm going to have to send people over to, quite frankly, he's got a conspiracy show going on right now. Go say hi to Frank for me. And I'll see you guys tomorrow. Peace.